Good, thanks. Great, thanks. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting for Tuesday, June the 14th. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and at this time, if I can call on the Deputy Clerk for the National Anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on God for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on God for thee.
Very good. Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Potawatomi, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Port Colborne stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Council, we have two proclamations this evening. Item 4.1 is Seniors Month of June 2022. If I could have Councillors Bodner and Beauregard move that. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. And 4.2 is World Hepatitis Day, July 28th, 2022. If I could have Councillors Bagu and Bruno move that. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. And if I could have Councillors Kalaleff and Wells adopt the agenda, including the addendum of the noise bylaw for the Belmont Hotel. So that is an amendment. So actually I'm going to have Kalaleff and Wells move the amendment and then as amended. So if that's okay, any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Now to the main motion, the same movers. Is that fine? As the agenda is amended, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? Thank you, Council. We have three sets of minutes, 7-1, 7-2, and 7-3. Special public meeting, road ends May 16th, 2022. The public meeting of May 17th, 2022. And the regular meeting of Council, May 24th of 2022. Councillor Demery and Wells, if you will move that. Any questions on any of those minutes? All in favor? That's carried. The following items have been pulled. Items 8.1, 8.2, 8.4, 8.6, 8.7, 9.1, 9.3, 9.9, and 9.11. If I could have Councillor Beauregard and Bodner move the items that haven't been brought forward. All in favor? That's carried. So delegations, we have two delegations this evening, Council. First is 11.1. Bear with me, I'll just pull this up. It's a letter from Mike Tenzin with regards to the Port Colborne Marina and basically how to pay your account at the marina. I think everybody's had a chance to read this. Are there any questions to staff on this one, Council? Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Bowles. Mr. Bowles, I know you and Blair have been doing a lot of work down there, and it's looking great, and you've really changed a lot of policies and procedures, and lots of compliments and kudos from residents that I've received. And I'm just wondering, I'm glad we've sort of cleaned up the policies and procedures, but this may not help Mr. Tenzin. Well, it won't help Mr. Tenzin, but in the event that people want to, so if they get a statement in the fall or an invoice in the fall and have to pay so much down and then the balance in the spring before they can put their boat in, can they be prepaying, in other words, work out in their own mind schedule and, e-transfer or probably in City Hall in the winter come in and put money against their account? So it's not putting us at risk during the season or if something happens to the boater, but maybe that's the way for folks who want to pay in their own time and space and plan could do it. Can we accommodate something like that? Might help his situation next year.
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor and council, I think it's a great point. Our goal is to have payment in full by the time a boat goes into the water, but having somebody that may have a slip pay in components at a speed to which they want between their deposit date at the end of a boating year and when the boat goes in the water is a great way for somebody to be able to spread their payments out in future years. So we can definitely accommodate that.
Great, thank you. Councillor, is that all right? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Director Bowles. I know in the past we have post-dated checks in the marina. Am I correct?
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, we have had them in the past, and it has led us to some complicated situations with boat slips where we don't have individuals, honoring those checks. And last year we did have a number of write-offs. So we have had post-dated checks in the past, but going to this year, we have moved away from that.
Mr. Baggett? Councillor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Steele.
You're welcome.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Bowles, is there a possibility that people could do pre-authorized payments? I know that people can do things if they want to use their Visa. They can pre-authorize a payment that's done even on a monthly basis, but it's an automatic pre-authorized payment. And I believe if it's set up, it has to be canceled it would be canceled by the marina as when they were notified by the person who had it in place that they wanted to end that. Is that a possibility, a pre-authorized?
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, we haven't set that up to this point in time. I guess if council directed it, it could be looked at. I just would point out to council that pre-authorized payment, whether it be by a card or by bank, could still be complicated. The reality is if the funds aren't there or the card somehow gets canceled or the account isn't in a good standing, what may end up happening is the boat's in the water, but we still may not find ourselves getting paid. And that's why we've gone forward with the policy that to put a boat in the water, you have to pay in full.
So speaking at that, then I like the idea of what you're saying, that if people want to pay ahead of time, as long as it's paid for by the time it goes in the water, they could pay on a monthly basis, bi-monthly, whatever they want prior to from the time they take it out of the water till they put it back in. Hopefully that will help most people to manage to budget it throughout the year.
Okay. Any further questions, Councillor Clayloff?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Baggett, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Bowles, I really don't like this coming to council because it might set a precedence if we give somebody a break and then 2 weeks from now we're going to have 10 or 12 people here asking for the exact same thing. As a compromise, if council is in favor of it and you think it's doable, for this, because it's post-COVID, this gentleman is a pensioner. He has had a slip in there for quite a few years as a 1953 Cedar runabout. I know the marina is a luxury rather than a necessity. Like, so it is really hard to give somebody a break when it's a luxury rather than a necessity for life, whether food or lodging or whatever it is. But because of the past precedents, we have accepted postage checks. I was just wondering if it's practical to, if anybody is in hardship like this, I'm not talking a 28-foot Chris Craft or nothing like this, that's an extra luxury, but a pensioner on a defined income, and have them go to the director of finance rather than council for some sort of payment structure. I did talk to this gentleman today. He called me up, and he's in agreement. It is tough, but he says, listen, if my check bounces, I know usually 10 days after the check bounces, you were notified. He says, haul the boat out of the water and kick the guy out of the marina for that year, plus maybe the next year as payment or punishment. I don't know. But that's, I just want to see what your appetite is for you to look into these situations. Like, I don't want an hour every 2 weeks, you tied up in meetings with this, but just your thought, Mr. Bowles.
Director Bowles?
Through the mayor to the councilor, I do think it's appropriate for the delegated authority to remain with staff, and on a financial matter normally remains with the treasurer. And just to add to that, staff are working, the clerk is working on a delegation of authority policy that will help outline this and other areas that I think are on the day-to-day operations, to make it very clear that they are delegated to the directors and managers across the city.
Counselor?
I'm with Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, comments? So then moving forward, if council, based on what I've heard from Councilor Bagu, that we should probably have this letter answered through Mr. Bowles' office with regards to what the conversation is tonight, moving forward to next year. And if Mr. Bowles wants to speak with Mr. Tenzin with regards to his slip, then we can give him that delegated authority if that's what you want, and we can move forward. Is that direction fine, Council? Okay, if I could have Councilors Demery and Wells move that. Any questions then? You understand where we're moving that on that? Councilor Kalala, if you're okay with that?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, seeing no questions, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Thanks, Brian. The next delegation is Mary Schwartz, 11.2, with regards to their 7.5 acre farm on Forks Road East, and it's regarding a new access for the property. Mr. Cia, which staff member will take this?
For your worship, to your worship, that will be the engineering department, Public Works.
Okay. Mr. Kalamoto, if you want to give us an overview, and then Ms. Swartz is here this evening if we have any questions for her. But if you can give council an overview on this one.
To you, Mr. Mayor, this is just a request for an additional entrance on the rural property. Actually, engineering does not have any objections to the exemption of this bylaw. If council would like to pursue that, technically everything is good on our case. Again, it is just the number of entrances within that bylaw, and that restricts it.
Okay. Questions from council? Can I get a mover? Oh, sorry. Councilor Bodnar, go ahead.
Thank you. Not a question, but a comment. That's a beautiful piece of property, by the way.
Yes.
It's gorgeous, so whatever we can do to help them out, I think we should do that. Thank you.
So if I could have Councilor Bodnar and Wells move that we allow the proponent to move forward on this based on staff's recommendation. Is that fine, Council?
Exception to the bylaw.
Yeah, exception to the bylaw. Is that fine? Yes. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Kalala, if you're all right with that? Okay. Perfect. So no questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Mrs. Swartz. Appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you. I was hoping somebody would ask you a question just so you could use our microphone. And you do have a beautiful farm. We were able to tour Mrs. Swartz's farm back in 2019 when she was here before the pandemic. And the history behind that and the buildings and the artifacts are phenomenal. Beautiful piece of property. So thank you. And thank you, Sonia, for bringing Mrs. Swartz. Former counselor of Ward 4, Sonia Smith. Thank you, Sonia. Okay. That's it for our delegations. We're going to go on to the mayor's report. So we just hosted our second and last Clean Community Day. I'd like to thank the residents of our great city for participating in our Clean Community Days over the past month, which saw 120 households clean up to 8,080 kilograms of waste. For those on the English system, that's 17,813 pounds of junk, I guess you can call it. And this goes a long way to beautifying our city. So people brought their pickup trucks, their trailers, and our staff loaded it into our bins. And this was the second one, and both have been very successful. And we have been asked by a number of people to make sure we move forward in the coming years, that we continue this. So I think it's probably something that council can look at and direct staff to do that. So make sure that gets in the budget, Mr. Bowles. So we're hoping to make this an annual event every spring. And in the meantime, Humberston Landfill, just up the road in Welland, will accept any unwanted items for free or for a fee. There is a reuse it center there, and they also have the chemical paint depot there, which is free, and they'll unload it from your car and take all any old paints or Varsols or anything that you have. We have our deadline coming up for grants for nonprofits and service clubs, which serve the needs of the residents of Port Colborne, to apply for a discretionary grant based on the provisions included in the grant policy. The next round of applications are due by Thursday, June the 30th. And to learn more about the grant policy, or to download the application, we ask you to visit www.portcolborne.ca/community grants. If you have a question, please call our EA, Nancy Giles, and she'll answer anything with regards to that. She looks after that for the grant review committee. On Friday, June 17th at approximately 6 p.m., the Niagara 2022 Host Society, along with Canada Steamship Lines, the Niagara region, the city of Port Colborne, will be holding a ceremony that will mark the official arrival of the Rolly McClenahan Torch in the Niagara region, and see the Niagara 2022 Canada Summer Games Torch Relay begin its journey across all 12 of the region's local municipalities in the lead up to the summer's 28th edition of the Canada Games. The disembarkment ceremony will be at Lock 8 Park and will take place mere moments after the torch-bearing vessel, the CSL St. Laurent, will have completed its historic journey along the St. Lawrence Seaway from Montreal right here to Port Colborne, marking for the first time in the event's 55-year history that Canada Games flame has traveled by water. Join us at Lock 8 Park to begin the celebration. And Councillor Wells will be involved in the torch relay this year, so there'll be more about that at this event. Do you live in north of Franklin Avenue and east of Highway 58? This area is known as the Omer area. Approved by council, the city of Port Colborne has contracted GM Blue Plan to inspect property sump pumps and foundation drains and or disconnect downspouts in the Omer area to help prevent basement flooding. A letter explaining this project has been sent to all affected homeowners in the Omer area. GM Blue Plan is currently doing the inspections this week. Please book your inspection. For more information about this project, including how to book an inspection with GM Blue Plan, visit our project website, www.portcolborne.ca/Omer Area Inflow Inspections, or contact the staff members listed on your letter. June is National Indigenous History Month, and the Port Colborne Public Library has made books by Indigenous authors easier to find in both the adult and children rooms. Earlier this year, the Port Colborne Public Library enhanced the collection by adding nominated titles from the 2021-2022 First Nations Communities Read Program and purchasing them from goodminds.com, a First Nations family-owned business passionate about Indigenous education. Funding was received in partnership with the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum through a Niagara Investment and Culture Grant with support from the region of Niagara. Tuesday, June 21st, marks National Indigenous Peoples Day, and in partnership with the TD Summer Reading Club, the Port Colborne Public Library will showcase the award-winning children's book, Sometimes I Feel Like a Fox, by Indigenous author Danielle Daniel, in a story walk. A story walk is a fun, socially distanced activity that places a children's book page by page on poster boards along the path or in a park. Families have the opportunity to enjoy reading a book while strolling through their community. The Port Colborne Public Library will set up the story walk outdoors on library property from June the 21st until August the 27th. Everyone is welcome to discover and read I Feel Like a Fox throughout the summer when they visit. Tim Welsh Consulting, the consulting firm hired to complete the City of Port Colborne's affordable housing strategy, will be joining city staff to host an open house on Tuesday, July the 5th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the L.R. Wilson Heritage Research Archives building between the museum and the library at 286 King Street. The city's new affordable housing strategy is expected to provide council and staff with an analysis of economic and demographic data sets, as well as insights into the barriers or issues that have impacted and currently impact the affordable housing supply right here in Port Colborne. It will also forecast the rate of Port Colborne's housing needs and make recommendations to improve affordability for groups with the greatest needs. The consultants will lead the open house with a short presentation about housing needs in Port Colborne, followed by opportunities for attendees to browse poster boards, ask questions, and provide input on the vision, goals, and recommendations of the affordable housing strategy. The open house will be split into two identical sessions, one beginning at 7 p.m. with doors opening at 6:30, and the other starting at 8 p.m. Space is limited and online registration is required at www.portcolborne.ca/affordable housing strategy. Any questions with regards to the mayor's report this evening? Great, thank you everyone. Regional Councillor Butters is away at this time. Are there any regional questions this evening? Councillor Bruno.
Not so much a question, but I don't know if any councillors or citizens have recently been to the Elm Street regeneration site and the dog park, 2 dog parks there. But the region has, I want to thank Councillor Butters and yourself, but they have done one heck of a job down there. I mean, you can now drive in there. It's all paved, parking stalls, the bumpers there, no stones up by that pavilion, just immaculate. So, I mean, it's just, it's quite the transformation if anybody's not been up there to have a look. So if you can pass on that thanks to the appropriate regional staff and to you, Mr. Mayor and Barb, thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is gorgeous. Councillor Butters did send me an email with regards to some correspondence she received from Carolyn Riel at the region in Public Works. The Miller Road area will be, it's on our 10-year list, and it's slated for engineering work to start next year, and probably it looks like paving will be starting in 2024 for that project, where it sits on our list. So I was glad that Barb sent that through, and I appreciate her looking at that with staff of the region. So again, thank you, Councillor Butters. Any further questions? Okay. Staff remarks. Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, you're over here. Sorry. The public can't hear you, Moran, when you're standing back there. Although we can.
I speak quietly at the best of times, so this is probably best. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council, last Tuesday we hosted, through our Economic Development Department, hosted Director of My Main Street program. We've been recipients of 4 grants over the last 2 years. She wanted to come down and see our city. She's been here before, but she hadn't been here in quite a while. She wanted to see our city. So while touring her around through our historic West Street and downtown, she commented on the number of out-of-town license plates that we were seeing, so we started counting them. We saw plates from the Yukon, Alberta, Connecticut, Wisconsin, Ohio. And to me, on a Tuesday, before summer season hits, to have that type of traffic to our city is from a tourism perspective, is quite good. And it's also excellent because we're attracting people, both rubber tire traffic, which is a day and a half drive, and also long haul traffic to our city. So I just wanted to comment that we are seeing tourism, and just the number of out of country and out of province license plates is a great indication of that.
CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two items. The first item hopefully is somewhat brief. Council members and any members of the public who might have seen the online agenda would probably have noticed that we have a bylaw on the agenda this evening to approve 6 building officials or building employees. I want everyone to be aware that that is not a massive hiring spree that we've gone on. That is in fact a bylaw designed to backfill some temporary illness absence that we'll have in that department. We would normally have done that with another municipality like Waynfleet or Pelham or Fort Erie. Unfortunately, because of the time of the year, those municipalities can't help us out. So this is actually the staff of a company called RSM, and they do the same thing that building officials and building inspectors do. They are certified by the province of Ontario for the service they provide, but they'll be able to do this on an hourly basis as if and when needed. We will not presumably have all 6 people in the municipality at the time. This is just to make sure that one of those people is when in town is appointed by the city bylaw. So that is not 6 new employees at City Hall. I can take questions on that. I'll go into the next item very quickly. Got some notes. It was my pleasure to be sent by council to represent Port Colborne at the FCM conference in Regina. That's an acronym that stands for Federation of Canadian Municipalities. It's an association, a municipal association that the city belongs to. It's nationwide, represents lobbying for municipal interests at the federal level. Council members, elected officials, and staff from municipalities across Canada. This was the first conference since the start of the pandemic. At the conference, there were keynote addresses from the Prime Minister and every federal political party's representatives. I was able to attend sessions on climate change, municipal innovation, municipal funding, and others. A study tour of a city-owned recreation facility in Regina, probably the largest trade show for municipalities in all of Canada. Some current city suppliers had booths there. Lots of innovative suppliers and solutions, including waste to energy, playground equipment, smart city or Internet of Things products, like a streetlight with microphones in them. They can pick up noise and can help with cameras in them and everything else. It's pretty good technology. And probably most importantly, to meet with colleagues, mayors, councillors, wardens, reeves, aldermen, if people still use those terms, and CAOs and other directors from other municipalities. Ate lunch with somebody who was from just outside of Winnipeg, and they had a lot of the same issues to talk about in the council chambers that we have, and people from right close to home, including from the town of Pelham, and one Pelham regional councillor from Pelham was appointed to the board of directors of FCM. The mayor and Councillor Bruno attended with me and asked me to give this update. I'm prepared to take any questions if there are any, or on the building official bylaw.
Great, thank you, Mr. Louie. Any questions? Okay. Staff, anything? Mr. Bowles?
Thank you, Mayor. 3 quick updates. I think council's always interested to know when the tax bills have gone out, and they actually went out today. So you may have some questions in the coming days, and our customer service reps are available to answer any questions that citizens may have. Another interesting just observation or note is Splashtown Niagara will open up on this coming Saturday at the beach, and that's I guess one way to explain it is a bit of a water park on the water. And it'll be quite exciting, I think, for residents and those that come and visit Nickel Beach. And then one other just quick item. I know that some councillors have noted to me recently that they had a couple questions about the camera that was put up at H.H. Knoll, just as a point of reference for council. In the 2022 budget, many of you remember we did approve a budget to look at surveillance cameras across the city. Staff has been doing some research. We did find a camera that looked interesting, and we did put one up, and actually in 2 locations at H.H. Knoll. It's been on a test basis. The one item that we will acknowledge that the signage that was put up wasn't the best signage, so we removed it, and we're working on putting up a different sign to explain that it's for a test and we are video surveilling. We do intend to use that to have a conversation with council at a later date, potentially in a couple weeks, invite council members out to take a look at the camera and what they can do. One thing I guess I'll just point out is on the first day it was also up. There was a bit of a test that went a little bit further where the camera actually did talk and would say to somebody when the sun went down that the park is closed and you have to leave. So they're very interesting. It's a very interesting system. So we look forward to showing council. And we certainly do apologize for any confusion because our sign was not where we wanted it to be. But we were putting up those in accordance with our bylaws with respect to how we use cameras at our other facilities within the city. So appreciate the time. If there's any questions, happy to take those.
Council, any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anything further from staff? Seeing none, I'm going to go to councilors' remarks or items. Right now, I'm going to start at my right this week. Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one through you to Director Kalamoto. The issue being the resurfacing of Snyder Road and the height of the Snyder Road surface to the shoulder and having very narrow shoulders. Can we put some signs up on that road that may warn people about the narrowness or the steepness of the shoulders, to warn them so that they don't end up in the ditch or have some difficulties driving down that road?
Mr. Kalamoto?
Through Mr. Mayor to the councillor, we can absolutely do that. The narrow road has already been ordered, but we will actually order some other signs per that recommendation about the steepness of the shoulders. Just to note that the road, traveled portion of the road width plus the shoulders is the exact same as it was before. However, it is noted that it is at a higher elevation, close to the edge where the ditches are. As the wear and tear of those gravel shoulders go down, the slope will decrease. And what we'll do is we'll also add some additional gravel where it can be, so to make it slightly wider than it was before. So in time, and we'll also put those signs up.
That would be great, thank you. One other suggestion might be that, and I may be wrong on this, but my advice by the residents there was that the west side ditch was added by St. Lawrence Seaway and wasn't there prior to that. Is there a possibility, because that road is narrow and fairly long, a long distance between Forks Road and the first residence on that, is there a possibility of putting some culverts, small culverts on the west side, and maybe just some stone that will allow us to have a passing point so they don't have to back all the way down? If we can put one strategically there between the residents and Forks Road somewhere on the west side of the roadway, just so that there's a little bit of room for them to bypass each other.
Kalamoto?
Through Mr. Mayor to the councillor and to any of the residents watching, we can absolutely take a look into that. I wasn't aware of the ownership of that one, but we can definitely reach out if it is not ours and try to ask them to do those. And if we can assist, staff will be happy to do that. Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have 2 items this evening. First, you had mentioned earlier in your report about being Seniors Month, the month of June. And we do have a Seniors Advisory Council, and that council takes turns every Friday going to the market every Friday of June and providing educational materials to the various seniors who come and visit the market and to their seniors' families and friends to show what is available and what help can be had. So we've been doing that and meeting with people, getting a lot of good response. People are very happy that the city does have this available for them, so that was a very good thing. We will be meeting until the end of June, so I would ask everyone to come out and talk to us and stop and have a little chat. I also did notice while doing this, we got a bit of a treat because along came very many members of the crew and some of the passengers of one of the tour ships that had docked. So it was kind of nice to see them touring around in the market. Actually, one made quite actually two made quite a statement with being in kilts. So it was kind of interesting, but it drew a lot of attention. But it was quite a nice morning. It was nice speaking with everyone. But the market is really obviously getting busier and busier every week. And from what I hear, there are going to be even more vendors coming this Friday. So I would hope everybody would take a chance to get out there and have a look. But that's all I had to say.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. If I could tonight, I was going to add my report in from FCM, and it's I don't have to walk over any of our CAO's comments because mine were entirely different. So hopefully they complement that. Before doing that, hearing a report tonight about Blue Zone being in town, I wanted to thank our Director of Public Works, Engineering and Operations, and if you could pass that on to Darlene, I'm sure she was involved, and there's probably some other staff that I don't know that were involved with that, but obviously, you know, water and wastewater and infiltration is pretty key, and to get this off the ground that quickly after announcing it and in the budget deserves some kudos. I'm sure the residents are going to be happy about that, and hopefully we find some low-hanging fruit in the Omer sewer shed. So thank you, Chris and staff. And so now moving to the report. I've always liked going to FCM, whether it was far away or in Hamilton. Next year is in Toronto. I encourage you to go. It was one of the places where we found the fiber optic technology and invested in NRBN and had a pretty good solution. I tried to find another NRBN, Mr. Mayor, there, but maybe there's some small ones that'll nurture into that. So in terms of who I dealt with there, and a lot of it was in the TradeX show that's there. A company that actually, the fellow is, the president of the company is coming to Port Colborne tomorrow with the help of Bram and Greg and Gary Woodby if he's here. So he is the president of an Edmonton company called Light Zone Glass. Light Zone Glass was interested in our waterfront center, and it would be nice to hook them up potentially with the architect, but they make an award-winning glass that has a very high R value in it, and it's a new technology. In 2016, it won a pretty prestigious awards. But anyways, as we got talking, the fellows was in St. Catharines today. Many of you know on Church Street, the old Enbridge, I think, building or Consumers Gas, that's going to be all redone. And so he said, well, Port Colborne's not too far, so we invited him down. He's also looking for, he's looking for a show place in Ontario and near the GTA and the border. And he's also looking for a property to build a factory on. So hopefully tomorrow's work might germinate something. So that was one. The other, I think, one of the highlights was we've been involved in now the issue of housing and affordable housing. They had a great program on that. One of the moderators was from the Canadian Urban Institute, and she did all the work for the federal government, her and her firm, to do this accelerator program, which is over $1 billion for housing. So I've spoken to her, and I'll pass that on to Angie, council members, and Councillor Butters was interested if I saw anything there on housing. So I'm hoping, Jennifer, we made a contact, can help us with any hiccups or any funding for affordable housing in Port Colborne. Let's pass by some of these. I should credit Mr. Louis with this. We found a unique product that I'll pass around that actually is, if you've ever seen Roombas that do vacuums, well, these do parks and trails and everything else. So, and it's in play in Kitchener-Waterloo. So we'll hope to talk to them. Another item I passed on to Mr. Bowles. I think we need something to stimulate the electronic payment and e-transfer of our water bills. So the Metro Vancouver did something neat that was a flyer that it was helpful hints on water losses, but it also provides you with the powder to test your tank. So it's good for the consumer, and it could be an offer maybe for some more prizes to up the rate on electronic transfers. Two that I really like the most is, one is Mr. Bowles is working with Rogers on all our Internet of Things and different connectivity in the rural area and that. And so two other companies were there. One was, I think it's Vironics. They do all our demographic work. But in order to merge those two, there's a company, B City, and they're interested in Port Colborne to do the platform that would link those two things. The thing I liked about them is I asked them why we should use them, and they said because Rogers picked us. And so I said, well, if I got a guy you want to talk to, so Mr. Bowles will be doing that. And the other one that might be closest to an NRBN is Councillor Baguio's favorite subject, which is EV and EV chargers. So this is a company across Canada, I think 1, 2, 3, 9 offices, and they are interested in another location in Ontario. They're currently in Mississauga, and I think it's more for warehousing, but suffice to say, they are looking for a municipal partner, and it may be something to explore, but early days, so we'll be talking to them. And finally, for all my fellow councillors, we used to all get Municipal World magazine, and we weren't getting it, so now you're going to get it, because I met the people from Municipal World. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And just further to that, Nancy has the Municipal World information to get your names on their list. Why you stopped getting it, I didn't know, but when we went up to their booth, they told us that, and they looked us up, and they said, well, only 9 people from Port Colborne are getting it. Everybody can get it for free. Well, not for our subscription, I shouldn't say free, but there's not a per user cost. So you'll start getting that. The other issue we talked about there, which Councillor Bruno and the CAO and I discussed, were 2 corporations that we're always having slight issues with through Mr. Kalamoto's department. Canadian National Railway and Canadian Pacific Railway. Canadian National Railway had a quite extensive booth there. They had some very key people, and we were able to sit down and have a lengthy discussion with their Director of Government Relations. So between Mr. Kalamoto and myself, we will be contacting that person with the issues that we're having with railway crossing fixes within the city of Port Colborne. CP Rail does own a small stretch of rail that's not being used at this point, but it's looking like there's going to be a company in Fort Erie that will be making rail cars, and they're going to get that track going again. It does cross one of our roads, which is not a very good crossing. So we're trying to get a hold of CP with regards to that. So we will be contacting the person that we talked to at FCM with regards to kind of, put it politely, get moving on this. So, you know, when you get to meet face to face, specifically now that the pandemic is kind of in our rearview mirrors, you tend to get more things done within your municipality when operating with these organizations that have land or rail or whatever it may be. Could be the St. Lawrence Seaway, could be the Ministry of Transportation, whatever it may be. And the lady that we talked to, the director, was phenomenal. Scott and I had, as I said, a quite lengthy conversation with her, and she wants every email that we've sent and why it wasn't replied to, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a good thing. They did do a heck of a job on Brookfield Road last year. Chris and I went out and looked at that after there was complaints, and they did get it fixed. But there's a couple more that we're working on with them and also CP. So we will be trudging forward. Like the CAO and Councillor Bruno, I attended several plenaries. Some we attended together. Some we split up to get the information from those. But the trade show is a place to go and really get some really cool ideas and information. We met several people that don't work here anymore, but from Niagara that knew Port Colborne very well, and the products that they had for sale were very intriguing. So, as Gary said, that's going to be brought to staff. Councillor Baggio, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to be as long as you two. Not as spectacular either. I'd like to thank our CAO, Mr. Louie, and Director of Mr. Bowles for addressing my two concerns regarding bylaw officers and the cameras at the park. And all I got left is I want to also thank Director Bowles again. He gets 2 times this time. And Blair and the Marina staff for having our first electric rapid terrain vehicle for the city. Cassandra Banning at the Environmental Advisory Committee mentioned at the meeting. I went and checked it out. Blair was busy on the phone putting out fires. I put in my email. So one of the staff was kind enough to show me the electric vehicle, and I was very impressed. And thank you, everybody, for involved in the purchasing or renting or whatever it is of an electric vehicle for the city of Port Colborne. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Councillor Clayliff, any items this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just actually had one. Most of the things I wanted to speak about have all been answered. I wanted to actually thank Mike Cadet. I had one incident over the weekend, and I know it's something that's been ongoing for a number of years, and it had to do with the, just give me 1 second. Sorry. It had to do, or it has to do with the washrooms on West Street. And I know Mike got back to me right away and explained to me what's going on, that they're looking at opening them. And he said, there's been some major issues with them, and I'm well aware of them. Having lived right there close to the washrooms, I know the ongoing problems that they've had with them. But I've spoken with several of the shop owners on West Street, and even some people at different times. And it really bothers me that we have got to figure out some way to manage these washrooms to get them open for people, because we've got tourists coming. We now have the cruises coming. We're hoping to have more and more people down there all the time, and to not have any public washrooms available, it's just too difficult. I've been racking my brains for any ideas. I don't know if anyone has anything they could come up with. I thought of locked doors, but then trying to give keys out and getting them back. There's always all kinds of things with those. I don't know if there's anything that you're aware of, or anyone's aware of the staff, that ideas that are coming forward, things that we might be able to do. Is it better to have portable washrooms than to open the ones at the pilot house? I just don't know, but I think that we've got to get on top of this right away. I'm not sure who I'm directing this to. It's just, like I said, it's a query, and it's been ongoing for years now, and it's not gotten any better. And I just trying to come up with some kind of a solution to it.
I'm going to go to the CAO at this time. Mr. Louie?
Through your worship, to Councillor Clayliff, I do appreciate you bringing this issue up to staff as well as at the council meeting. I know I was copied on your email to Mike Audet, or through the series of events, the email that Mike Audet responded to. It is something that we've been talking at the staff level all year and going back through several years. But this year we have been planning how we can address this. We've been involving the police. There is some criminal activity taking place there and some unsafe activity. Our primary concern is the safety of not just the users of the washroom, but the entire community, visitors, people who live here year-round, even the staff who go in there to take care of the different facilities of our public-facing facilities. We do have a few ideas, probably not ready to talk about them at this point, but we do want to do a little bit more work behind the scenes before we're ready for a council report. But we do have some ideas on how we can we can maintain the level of service, but maintain it in a safe way, I guess, is what we're trying to do. So I guess this is my way of sort of saying, please stand by or please be patient. But those washrooms will be open on the schedule that Mr. Audette provided, and we will be able to make sure that we maintain the level of service in the short term and put some safety measures in place for the long term.
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Louie. That's what I really wanted to hear. Like I said, Mike was great. I understand, I understand the issue totally. So I guess I just want it out there publicly because people keep asking about it. And when you really don't know what's going on, I want them to hear it from you and to know, to have an understanding of why it's so difficult. It's not for lack of trying, because we've tried many things, I know, over the last few years, tried to figure out better ways to do it. So I just want people to know that you are working on it and that we are hopefully coming up with some solutions to it, and they will get open soon. And maybe in the meantime, I can do a public service announcement and ask that, I know it's difficult for the shop owners when people want to use their washrooms, but maybe if they know that this is coming and that things are in place or going to be in place soon for a better way of system and having the washrooms open, maybe they will allow some of the customers and different people to use the washrooms if they need to, because it's difficult when people are downtown and they can't get a washroom. So maybe I can ask them to just bear with us as a city, knowing that we're working on this. It's not something that we've neglected. And if people are asking to use the washrooms, maybe you could allow them to for the short term until we can get all of this done. That's all.
Great. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Counselor Borgard? Nothing? Counselor Bodnar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this may be a little deviation from the norm, but I'd like to recognize the passing of Cecil Vincent recently, an ex-CAO of the city and more recently a consultant, and an all-around nice guy and gentleman, and people I had the pleasure of working with. Certainly will miss him. And when I say gentleman, even when he was beating the heck out of you on the golf course, he never rubbed it in or anything. He was always supportive, let's put it that way. So I'd just like to recognize that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor, and very well said, and I'm glad you asked to bring that up tonight. So really appreciate that, because you were mayor when Cecil was just leaving, I think. Yes, so that was good. I think a lot was said in the newspaper article from the city and other people within the community, so he will be missed. That being the end of Councilor's queries, we are going to go on to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Council, I'm going to move 8.8 to the noise variance request from the Belmont Bar and Grill ahead because they are here this evening and the rest don't have any delegations for those items. So I'm going to bring item 8.8 forward, and the recommendation, if I can have Councilors Bagu and Claylough move that the Community Safety and Enforcement Department report 2022-137 be received, and that Community Safety and Enforcement Services recommend the Council grant a temporary permit to exempt the Belmont Bar and Grill from Section 4.3 of Bylaw 458811904 with the following terms and conditions. That the temporary noise variance be approved for the period starting Friday, June the 17th to Friday, September 2nd from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. and from Saturday, June 18th to Saturday, September the 3rd from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. for a DJ with equipment and live bands being able to amplify music. In the event that the City of Port Colborne receives significant noise complaints from the area residents, then option 1 as outlined in this report would be implemented. The permit is applicable only to the production, reproduction, and amplification of sound in connection with these events. The owners of the Belmont are here, Alex Bobick, and then their spokesperson is Liette Croteau. If we can ask Liette to come up and speak as a delegate on this, and then we can go to questions to either the Belmont or to Chief Lawson with regards to this report. Welcome, Liette. Just press the button there, and then you're all set.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and City of Port Colborne staff. My name is Liette Croteau, and I am a server manager at the Belmont. On behalf of the Belmont, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight regarding our submission for a time variance for the summer season. This is something that is extremely important to our business and to the city of Port Colborne. Over the past 2 years, the Belmont, like most hospitality businesses across the world, took a significant financial hit due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As we are coming out of the pandemic, our band nights are essential for our business to recover. Prior to the pandemic, the Belmont always had music on Friday and Saturday nights. Being in the downtown commercial zone, we feel that the small minority who may be opposed to this, who choose to live next to the downtown commercial zone, cannot outweigh our ability to conduct business, as that is why we have downtown commercial zones. We know many people who live next to the downtown commercial zones in other cities in Niagara that allow music. They acknowledge that hearing music at night is a part of living next to a downtown, and they embrace it. If you choose to live next to an airport, you simply cannot complain about the sound of airplanes. But we know this is just a small minority, and we want to focus on the majority for our decisions. We know many people here in Port Colborne that love living next to the downtown commercial zone and all of its benefits, and actually thank us for our band nights and providing opportunities like this for them. The Belmont has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past decade for improvements and to make it a better place for our community, including our recent patio, which if you haven't seen it yet, I have to say it's one of the nicest patios in Niagara. As a server manager of the Belmont, I would like to let you know that we carefully plan our business in accordance to our clientele, and our band nights are catered to the young professional demographic. One of the major challenges facing Port Colborne is the retention and attraction of youth and talent. Having things to do is one of the main considerations for young professionals when choosing where they want to live. If Port Colborne doesn't offer social opportunities catered to young professionals, like our Friday night band nights, we will lose that demographic as they will just go to other municipalities. Having bands at an earlier time also doesn't make financial sense for our business and doesn't cater to our clientele. We know that our busiest time outside of our dinner rush is midnight to 1 a.m. on weekends, which is catered to young professionals. We know exactly when our late night crowd picks up, and it is just after 11 p.m. If a band only plays at 11 or 12 until late night, our late night crowd wouldn't be there, and we couldn't afford to have a band. If we only play radio music from 11 p.m., the late night crowd will just go to other municipalities for the evening social time, and we'll lose our late night business. This will create a snowball effect. With rising food costs, one of the reasons we are able to keep our menu prices reasonable for families who count on us as an affordable place to eat is that we balance our revenue with late night sales. This is another important reason our band nights are essential to our community. We can't build strategies to attract and retain talent if we don't offer the things they want. Without places like the Belmont, a true local establishment, and the longest continuously operating hospitality establishment in Port Colborne, a community loses its identity. I wouldn't want to live in a city without places like this as a young professional myself. As a business in the downtown commercial zone, conducting its business for close to a century, we are hopeful that you vote favorably to our request. This is an essential component to our business in addition to the quality of life of the majority of the citizens in our thriving city. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Great, thank you. Questions to either staff or the speaker? Councilor Bruno.
Thank you for the excellent presentation. Through you to the acting director and chief, Scott, a well-written report, by the way, and you really looked at this from, thought every angle and tried to be fair and balanced. I did want to ask a couple questions. Currently, when we, during Canal Day weekend, do we do extensions then? Like, I don't recall what the time limit is at the core and other establishments. Do you?
Chief?
Through the mayor to council. That's a great
Oh,
question.
picture.
Oh, sorry. How's that? Through mayor to council. My apologies. First day with my new finger. I would have to look into that. I do believe that we, for the weekend, kind of do a blanket noise alterations, but with that said, we do shut down the park down at H.H. Knoll, I believe at 11 o'clock out of respect for the people within the hospital, Northland Point, and the surrounding areas.
Do you know, having your department author this, has the applicant seen your report? I know it came out to us like later. Does anybody know, or does
So-
clerk know?
Madam Clerk?
I received this report today, just before the meeting.
Okay, great. If I could also I'll come back to the chief, but I did have a chance today to look at the patio and how enclosed it is. My concern was it can block a lot of noise, but it might also be a megaphone out the one end. And so I didn't know if there was any consideration at the King Street end or in the alleyway there of putting any noise absorbing apparatus there to deaden. In some places you'll see in a stadium, right, there are those hanging like punching bags, and other places it's curtains, and other places it's just stuff to stop the reflection of the noise off the walls. And would you consider that?
Leah?
I believe it's something we could look into, but again, it would be like there's still the walls around.
Sure.
We could look into that way. However, we just wouldn't be able to block the exit. People also use that as parking.
For sure.
So we just have to look into how we can accommodate that area.
Sure. I mean, I think it's, you want to talk to somebody who does that kind of thing acoustically, but, there may be something that really will dampen that in that alleyway. If I could come back to...
Counselor, just before I go there. Chief, with regards to Counselor Bruno's question, is there any advice that you and your staff can give the proponent if they are looking for sound abatement?
Through the mayor to council, that unfortunately is one of my strong points, noise abatement. The only thing we could do is monitor sound at that point, monitor complaints. And I guess we should add, the reason this report got to council so late is through the clerk's recommendation, we wanted as much public input as we can, which I think is all noted at the bottom of that report. I believe we've tailored it to what suggestions we have heard and received, and I think that's where we're at right now.
Okay, go ahead, Counselor.
And just one last thing. I mean, I like the balance in there that you want to encourage business and hope this can work. And there's, if it doesn't work, there's no...
Oh, turn your microphone.
I like the fact that you've, same finger problem, yeah. I like the fact that there are, for lack of a better word, some penalties or cost if this doesn't happen. You get reduced as an option. But just in that, can we also look at the other way? So we've extended an hour to 11:59. If that doesn't work, it can be every other weekend. They lose a day. I read the report. I see where you're going there. On the flip side, if it works in a month and we're into the middle of July, is there any reason we can't revisit this? So in other words, it's 11:59. You're going to get knocked back if there's a lot of complaints. If there's no complaints and our interpretation and watchful eyes say it's working, can it also go the other way, like say till 1 o'clock? I mean, there's nothing tying us from having to stick to this report. It's what it is now, and at any time we can reopen it.
Yeah, you can make amendments this evening or at any time moving forward.
I mean, I think rather than make it this evening, I wouldn't mind just seeing how it goes. I think this is good for now, but if the noise abatement equipment, the control of the band or the DJ, to not cracking it up, I mean, all of us can, or most of us, I think, are still up at 12. Sorry, Counselor. And so I just thought that, with the stick, there's also a carrot, and there's a reward. So I'd like to propose that we do that. I don't know that we really need that in writing. I think, or an amendment now. I think we could, if we can revisit this, if it's working, I'd rather do it then.
At the halfway point.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, would you like to see that as an amendment to this for staff to bring it back? Or do you want direction that we give the chief the ability to bring it back to us? You want to answer that, and then I'll go to the chief?
Absolutely. I would, we could delegate the authority to the fire chief, director of bylaw services, moving forward to evaluate the progress, the complaints. We can do that this evening through an amendment, or it can be brought back to council by the delegate to request extra additional hours based on what's happening.
Chief?
Through the mayor to council, I would rather prefer a little bit more direction from council for this. If we start getting complaints, I would have to revert right back to what the bylaw says, and at 11 o'clock we'd have to shut them down and start fining for those noise issues. So unless you give me direction and word that we can extend it, I would have to deviate right back to the existing bylaw and enforce it the way it's written.
Okay,
without that exemption.
Yeah, on that point, I'm going to go to Councillor Demeray first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to suggest that we set maybe a halfway point to revisit it, because it would not be correct to put it on Chief Lawson, and you've explained that quite well. And we don't want to put a big disservice on the Belmont either by having to shut you back to 11 o'clock. That would be crazy. So revisiting it at the halfway point, seeing how things are going, that might be the better way.
Councillor Wells?
I was trying to get your attention for the.
I'm going to questions first. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Clayliff? On that point with regards to it coming back to us, Councillor Clayliff?
Is there, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter, I can't see her, but I just wondered, is there any possibility, she says that the time change for when they go to this late night group, is there any possibility of the music going indoors after 11? She said that that's when their dinner card leaves, and then their young professionals come in, and we could work on it with them that way, and maybe they could even go later. If they were indoors, would they be able to do the same things that they would have been doing at the outdoor patio? Or I just wondered, is that a possibility? And then they could go a little bit later because you wouldn't have as much noise.
Leanne?
So I actually looked into the idea, and I emailed a lot of our bands that we have already pre-booked, and I asked them how they could work with us and if they would be willing to do half their set outside and the second half inside. All the bands said that it was way too much work to have to pack up all of their stuff, to then move inside, unpack all of their stuff, and then do the sound check all over again. By this time, our customers, there's no music playing. People are walking in and out with big pieces of music. They don't want to lug around expensive pieces. And then again, our customers are just sitting there waiting for the music to start again. It kind of dampers the atmosphere and the whole vibe of the night. So that wasn't one of our options that I had looked into. Okay. Another thing we looked into as well, we did have one of our bands inside, and we noticed that the atmosphere was not the same. People want to be outside. It's hot outside. The Belmont is large on the inside, but at night with all the band equipment, it's just not large enough. So the outside was just our better option. I also just wanted to make a side comment that I had personally dropped off over 100 letters. I went house to house, and the only 2 complaints that we got were just 2. So based off of 100 letters, that's about like 2%. So it's just a very small minority.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
I'm glad to hear that, because that was actually my next question had you talked to any of the neighbors or let them know what was going on, and had you had any concerns from them? And I saw in the report today that there wasn't very much that had come in. So, I wasn't sure if the music was changing at 11 because you said it was a different group. I didn't realize it would be the exact same bands coming in, so I can understand what you're saying. Just thought it might be a possibility. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor. So on that point, Council, any further questions on that one?
Are we still on that point? Or
That one? Okay, that's fine. I'll come back to you. Okay. Councillor Clayliff, we're off of that discussion. Did you have any other questions to staff or the proponent on this one?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Councillor Demeray?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, I'm thinking, first of all, 2 complaints I would like to actually, through you to the presenter. I just want to explain to you that 2 complaints, it may seem minor, but 1 complaint triggers bylaw to come out and speak to the issue. So 1 complaint will shut anyone else down. So 2 complaints isn't minor. It can be a major thing. So I just wanted you to know that. But also, having, not to say some of us are old, but there are many of us here who've been involved in a lot of canal days arrangements over the years, and we've all sat on the committee for many years. And I do remember many discussions around, when do we shut it all down? And I've never, ever, do I have a memory of shutting it down after midnight, ever. That was the last call for everyone, whether it was the Legion getting a permit, whether it was the Canadian Corps getting a permit, whatever it was always midnight. So that always was that triggering time. So, just to answer that question, if anyone has it, there is that. But and even the Market Square was shut down at that time. That's just how that went. I do think it's really important that we find a way that the Belmont can thrive, and the people who live in the area can be comfortable where they live as well as their animals and their children and all of the other things that get bothered by noise as well. So it's an important thing. So meeting halfway is probably what's going to happen, and I fully support the report and the idea of meeting, maybe reviewing this at the halfway point, but at the end of July maybe. That would be a great idea.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got Councillor Beauregard, Bagu, then Bodnar.
Through you, Your Worship, I actually would like to propose a friendly amendment to this motion for the wording of it is somewhat confusing, where it says that the temporary noise variance be approved for the period starting Friday, June 17th to Friday, September 2nd. It almost sounds as if every day between Friday, June 17th to September 2nd would be included. It should maybe state every Friday and every Saturday of the months of June, July, and August, including September 3rd and...
Okay, so Madam Clerk says it would read for the period starting every Friday, June 17th to Friday, September the 2nd, and 8 p.m. to 11:59, and from every Saturday, and the same, day later, to the 18th to the 3rd of September. Okay?
Okay.
Madam Clerk, you're fine with that?
Yes.
So we'll look at that as more of a grammatical change than an amendment? Okay. You're all set?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got Councillor Bagu next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of the residents I talked to, even up to yesterday, and they're all under the impression that the city of Port Colborne has a noise bylaw that you can't play a band after 11 o'clock in the municipality. And even I emailed the bylaw last Friday asking for specifics, and basically there is no specific time. It's the noise that triggers bylaw to go out there. If you're disturbing somebody, it could happen 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 10 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't matter. So just for people watching to get that straight, they're under the impression that there is a certain time, which is not. My second point, Mr. Mayor, I fully back this report, staff's recommendation. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Running a small business myself, I can appreciate that, you've been through a tough time and you need some help. I can also appreciate that we have an obligation to make sure this works. And I think that this compromise till 11:59 p.m., you prove that it can work. You just prove. You make it, if you need to turn the music down a tiny bit, if there are complaints or whatever, you prove you can do it, and the possibility is there, maybe for an extension. I don't know that at this time, but I think that, you know, you prove you can do it, and you prove that it works, and we don't have a ton of complaints, then, you know, we may be willing to extend that. So just my thoughts on it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we need an amendment to ask to revisit this at the halfway point, or is it just a staff?
I think we can request that and have this as a friendly amendment. And I looked at the timing of this on my calendar here. Looks like if we can get it back to the July 19th meeting, that pretty much gives you halfway. Okay. Is that all right?
Through the mayor to council, if it's all right, can we just monitor it and bring it back if necessary? But we'll have that cutoff date of, if we don't have a bunch of complaints after July 19th or whatever that date was, then we'll just let the season ride out.
Okay, but otherwise you may be coming back on July 19th.
Yes.
Okay, is that fine, Madam Clerk? Okay, is that fine with council? Councillor Bodner, then Councillor Demery. Councillor Bodner.
That kind of never gives them the chance to get past midnight, which may be a good thing, but it may be something that we could.
Microphone.
Must be this finger thing, I don't know. Didn't know it was catching. Yeah, so, but it doesn't give them a chance to at least make their point or an ask again to go past midnight. So I think we just need to word it that at that time, whatever that date is, that we would consider looking at it. But I'd like it also worded that it doesn't negate, if there are problems with noise, that the chief's got the go-ahead to do whatever he needs to do to stop the noise. So they don't get an automatic get-out-of-jail card till the 19th. So.
Yeah, so I think Madam Clerk stated that with regards to what the chief and his department does between now and the 19th would just be their normal work. So we don't need to put that in here. But if we can put that they do come back to the July 19th meeting, we invite the Belmont back at that point for any discussion and any changes that this council may want to make at that time, then you can move forward from there. Is that fine, council? Okay, so sorry?
Through you, Mayor Still, that would be a reconsideration at that point if we were going to change the exemption. So we'll just keep that.
That's fine. That can be done at that time. Council can do that. For Councillor Bagu and Clayliff, is that fine with July 19th? I see a nod there. Councillor nod. Okay. Councillor Bruno?
Thank you. I guess before we get into the reality of the time they're open, and so what, through you to the chief, how will you ascertain that measurement, and can you, with your forces, give you an example? Somebody calls in, it's 11:30 at night, and they say the noise is too loud. That's a complaint, but is it, that the noise is in the ear of the beholder, right? So where I'm going with this, are you going to be sending someone out to verify that? Or just a complaint is a complaint and it's a strike against you?
Chief?
I think they should know, and we should know the mechanics of how you'll decide that.
So through the mayor to council, I'm actually not assuming that I'm going to receive the complaint. I'm assuming that you're receiving the complaints. So yeah, definitely. I think you're going to hear about it more than we will. We don't have people on staff after 11 at night, so we will get voicemails. It's going to be a little harder for us to follow up. We will do our best to treat every complaint, and we might have to do maybe a couple late nights and just put an officer on late to follow up on that. That's my solution at this time.
Councillor? Fine?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about this.
Yep. Councillor Bodner?
So for those of us that have been around for a while and have dealt with noise complaints, and we actually had someone that read the decibel level. Now you've got it. You've got something in your hand. It's not, I can't hear very good, so that's not loud to me. But so if you have a decibel level. And I don't know whether you have that, but I know there's lots of people that have that. And should we kind of put that in place, like, so you can go ahead and either authorize that or somebody, so that you've got it right away and not have to wait? Wait to hear from the chief.
So through the mayor to council, I mean, I have a decibel reading on my phone or meter. So I mean, that technology is available to us. It's just our ability to get manpower there from the bylaw during that time. So we can set something up, maybe for them to swing by at that time, take a quick reading, 11:30, and just monitor it. I think take that with the complaints, and we can make some kind of matrix to figure out how we're going to deal with this.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This isn't really so much about the level of the noise, it's about the noise period. So we're changing the time that people are expecting to hear noise. That's what it's really about. So we would expect if there are going to be complaints, those people who are complaining are just going to be complaining, period, there's noise. If they don't want to hear it, there's noise. That's what their complaints are going to be. What I'm thinking about as a review of the situation halfway through is just to hear the number of complaints we got. And does that, does that support going forward and extending it, or does that support keeping it in place? That's what I'm thinking of as a review. I don't think we have to get highly technical about it. Noise is noise. Bands play at a certain level. We know that. Anybody who's been out to see a band knows you can expect a lot of noise. That just goes with the territory. But it's the noise after the 11 that they have that in their mind. They have 11 o'clock in their head, and they figure if it's after that, they should call and get that shut down. Well, we just want to track the number of complaints, because you're not going to shut it down. Unless it's after midnight, then you're going to shut it down. But if it's between that 11 and 12, you're not going to shut it down. You just want to track the number of complaints, just so that we can see if it's working and if they can go ahead and maybe we can grant them more leeway in the future. That's really what it's about.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
I just think you need a third-party, unbiased view of that. I mean, we've just telegraphed what the method is to be potentially shut down. So if you were someone out there that said, my 3 neighbors call up, it's too loud, I think I would rather have some empirical measure that is less refutable. I mean, at the end of the day, if we go back to the premise that what's loud for somebody isn't for the other, then if you were just going to chalk up the number of people complaints, I just want to make sure there's no issues where this can be manipulated or targeted. That's all I'm saying. As long as it's fair, I'm for whatever.
Just reviewing the number of.
Yeah, so can we leave that up to the chief with his staff to determine? I don't think we're going to do that tonight. I don't think we're experts in this. So I think the chief does have avenues. As he said, our phones can do it today, so. All right, chief, is that fine? Fine with council? Okay, so everybody nodding? Okay, good. All right. Any more questions?
Do you need the amendment?
Well, no, we're fine with the July 19th. The clerk says we're fine adding that in as direction, as part of this. Okay. All right, that's it for questions. Chief, you're set?
I'm good.
All right. CAO, anything to add?
No, perfect.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Liette, thank you for speaking tonight. Alex, thank you and your sister for coming out. And between the chief and the clerk, will be in touch for July 19th. Let's hope everything goes well. I would suggest that you take some suggestions from tonight, maybe some sound mitigation against, because I know where the band plays, against maybe one of the walls or 2 of the walls there. You may want to talk to the chief if he has any comments on that. I please ask him, because he's here to help. Okay? Thanks, guys. Thank you, council. Okay, we're back to item 8.1. Is the Community Safety and Enforcement Department. The recommendation, and I'll have councillors Bodner and Beauregard move, that Fire and Emergency Services Department Report 2022-75 be received for information purposes. And we're going to go to the chief now, and he's going to give his annual report. Chief?
Through the mayor to council, once again, it is my pleasure to bring this report to you on our 2021 activities. I think the biggest thing change for me is the name up there. It's the Community Safety and Enforcement. So it's not known anymore. That bylaw is now with fire. It's been a great merge, and I'm hoping through this report you'll see some of the changes that we've made. I'm hoping within the community you've seen some changes. I can see some changes because I'm definitely not getting the complaints that we used to. So, and I appreciate that. So, if Madam Clerk can advance that for us. I guess that what I will do too is just, there is a full report. This is going to be a quick synopsis of whatever was in that report, just so that if anybody has any questions, there is a lot more detail within the report. So our org chart is, we do have 15 full-time staff. We have 12 firefighters. We staff 3 on per shift, 24/7. We have a full-time chief. That's me since March of 2021. We have a full-time deputy chief, fire prevention officer, administrative staff. We supplement for our larger calls, fires, MVCs, remote alarms with our 32 volunteers. So as we get a call that our full-time staff doesn't have the manpower for, our volunteers are paged out and they come in to supplement us on the fire grounds. And of course we have one chaplain, Brian Lofthouse, who is a godsend to all of us. If you've ever met the man, he's a true gentleman. With that, we do have an organizational chart now for bylaw. We have 4 full-time dedicated staff. I kind of left myself out of there. My time is not directed full-time to it. We do have the manager, a senior officer, an officer, and an intake. And historically, we've brought on summer students to supplement our needs out at the beaches for parking and whatnot. This year we took a little bit different avenue, but that's for next year's report. I will note that our intake officer, Madison Cesar, was on mat leave, and that's why you see Matt up there. Madison's back, and you'll hear that voice on the phone when you do call. Next page, please. I can't move on without saying Chief Cartwright retired after 21 years of service to the city. Great man. I do have a little bit here. He started his career in September 13th, 1972 in the town of Markham. During Tom's career, he served as deputy chief in Georgina, fire chief in Fort Erie until coming to Port Colborne in 2001. Tom served as a fire chief for, well, I had 21 years, 20 here, well, somewhere in there. Tom was a big believer in prevention and was key, and believed it was key to an effective fire service. Some of the innovative programs he brought provincial recognition to the city was our in-service inspection and smoke alarm program. This led Tom to being named Fire Chief of the Year in 2018 by the Ontario Municipal Fire Prevention Officers Association. And I'm lucky enough to say he's not just my mentor, he's a friend. If we could, next slide, please. So one of the first things that we did once I turned chief, we created as part of the senior leadership within the city, we created a tactical plan to kind of guide us for the next 4 to 5 years. It takes us up to 2025. We did, whenever possible, match it to the city's strategic plan, whether it was supporting people, financial management. We know we, as a fire service or community safety and enforcement, just don't want to be part of the city's growth. We want to be instrumental in its future. Best part about being in the fire service, being part of the community. And we do this in multiple different ways. We get involved, we get brought into things. It's a great. We did help a lot at the vaccine clinic, which I'm very proud of this, that it was one of the top 3 within the region. And public health loved coming up this way. So that's kudos on just not the facility, but the staff that helped them do that. We got donated a whack of masks. I know whack isn't a number, but there was a lot of them. and we actually gave those out to the community on multiple giveaway nights. Great event. Lots of good feedback from them and our residents. Next page, please. We can never forget about our 2021 toy drive. It was probably our best. It was just phenomenal what this community does for us. Part of our focus on community is, with the lockdowns and everything else, we wanted to, whatever we could, to engage the community also through communication staff helped us with different contests. Find Sparky, we went different spots, and we had some fairly good feedback with that. Of course, our drive-through, build a fire truck, we had 5 different winners for that. And again, it's not just fire, but bylaws very entrenched in this community, not just in the enforcement, but making it a better place through other events that they help with too. Next page, please. I think, is this our 3rd or 4th? You're going to see the slide for the 5th, 6th, and 7th too, because this is the fire service. It's how we have to a balanced approach. So it's between code enforcement, public education, and suppression. Without one or the other being too heavy, you're going to have an imbalance, and we're not going to protect our community the best that we can. Next page, please. So with that, the 3 lines of defense, public education. This is probably, again, one of my favorite, because we can be creative within our community and touch more people. Boots in the door. It's a great way. So we did that. We did virtual school visits. I'm very proud to say that we are starting to get them back into the fire hall. It's great to hear kids in there again. But under certain circumstances, we made lemonade. We did our 4th year with CHCH coming to Port Colborne. We do have them signed up for the 5th. I think that's kudos to not just the communication staff, but the venue that they come to. Farmers Market, I think we heard about how great that is. We are fairly active on social media. Our smoke alarm program unfortunately went to requests and complaints, but again, I can say that starting in May, we're back in the community full force. So let's pray that COVID's over, and lots of community engagement. Code enforcement, that's a lot of our job, and that's where we can touch a lot of different places too, between business licenses. Supervised fire drills, that's mandated through the Ontario Fire Marshal for all our vulnerable occupancies, our Northland Points, the hospitals, Portal Village, and so on. Property inspections, we hit about 100 to 150 a year. Fire safety plan review, again mandated through the fire code. Building plan review, prosecutions, that did fall back a little bit, but if I mention names, you know the usual suspects. And our smoke alarm program. Again, not really happy with where those graphs are, but I think next year you're going to see us back to about the 2017, 2018 numbers. So response, again, you've heard this before, it's kind of broken down into 4 pieces. Our level of service, equipment, training, and our call response. So level of service, next slide please. Level of service really falls on this council. You actually dictate what we're allowed to do and what that level is, and I think right now we're very appropriate. We have brought different changes in past September in our medical response, which you granted that to us. But right now we're in a really good spot, and I thank you for that. The trick is with that level is where we set our training and the equipment that we need to keep going forward. If you can change the slide. So a response, I mean, everybody loves a fire truck, don't we? Our first run truck is a 2015 Spartan. Engine 2 is slated for replacement this year. It's a 2000. Just so you know that NFPA states that after 20 years, that vehicle should be taken out of service. Our tanker, beautiful tanker, 2015, rescues at 2012, and our ladders to 2006. This council and past councils have taken very good care of the fire department, and I hope that relationship keeps going. Next page, please. So with our training, again, we had different things, and I hate using that 5-letter word COVID, but we did get creative. Through learning contracts with the Ontario Fire Marshal, we actually continued on with our NFPA certification. The biggest reason I put that up on there is learning can be fun, and it kept our people engaged. And while it wasn't what we wanted, we prefer hands-on training. You can see that there's about, I'm saying 9 smiling faces up there on a screen, and that's how we spend our Tuesday nights for 5 weeks, getting a certification course done, but still engaging our people, which I take a lot of pride in. So during the lockdown, we did get 17 people certified as public educators. We did 5 incident safety officers, and we had 8 firefighters certified to Fire Officer 1. So we continued our training even with the challenges that we had. Next slide, please. With that, when things started to open up, we got into some hands-on training. We certified and recertified in defib. We hit a lot of survival. That's how we make sure our people can take care of themselves. We did entrapment, low-profile bailouts, rapid intervention, and the Denver and Ants. Great drills, but they beat the heck out of our people. Then we got into some roof, hose movement, rural water, search and rescue, and SCBA. So you'll see Robin Hood's up there. That was one of the other little bonuses of 2021 is a partnership between Robin Hood. And if you could show the next slide. And a grant that we received from the OFM for training. Within Robin Hood, we actually have, I call it a house, but it's more of a maze that with movable walls. We've moved it about 3 times, and it's a great way to challenge our people. We've got furniture in there, and it gets us out of the weather, but it gives us a controlled atmosphere for our people to train, whether it's hose advancements, search and rescue, and all the other firefighter safety drills that we do to make sure our people are well trained and ready to respond. Within the training, we did, as I think we've told this council before, all our people are certified firefighters in the province of Ontario. So that's firefighter 1, 2, hazmat, awareness, and operations. We did a great job in that. We do, under our ENR bylaw, we do have rope rescue and water rescue. 2021, we focused on rebranding and updating our rope rescue. You wonder how often we use that. We're probably 4 or 5 times on the ships in the winter for medical and other injuries. And we actually have to lift the folks off the ships or get them out of the hold. So that's where we use that training to help our community. So that was our focus. Brand new program created and operating guidelines, all updated in equipment, and our people just ate up that training. It was excellent. Next slide. So just a little bit in stats. I don't want to hold a whole lot of weight in the stats, but you can see our call volume did go up. 2020, we were dropped down just about the 625. We did rebound to 888, and a lot of that was just from how EMS during the COVID, they geared back on how we were getting dispatched just to protect as many people as they could. That did get released later in the spring, and then we did have another shutdown come January of this year. Next slide. Fire losses. I know Councillor Wells was a little concerned about the jump in 2020. We did see a little drop. I believe my eyes aren't that good right now, but it looks like 39 from 43. It's a little drop, but nothing to get overly excited about. I think we still have a lot of work, and that's our ability for the smoke alarm program, boots on the ground, and get seen in the city again. So I'm hoping next year, 2022's report, you're going to see us back maybe in that high 20s. It hasn't been going so good yet, but this, lots of things can change. So the bylaw service model, it's very similar to fire. We got education, which is key to lowering the complaints so we don't have those repeat issues. Enforcement, when we can't get that compliance, what are we going to do? We're going through orders. We now have the AMPs that are ability to charge people. So we have a few more tools, and it eliminates the threat. The city-driven cleanups, repairs, towing, and fines, that creates less threats within the city, whether it's a rodent issue or just the ability for theft. Next, please. So bylaw services, we call them the big 3. Lot maintenance, that's probably one of our biggest ones. It's the outside of the property, whether it's rubbish, unlicensed plates, noxious weeds, long grass. It's visual unappealing, and the big one is we can get into some pest problems with that issue. Next. With us no longer being a hidden gem and within the region, we have seen an influx of traffic up here. Parking issues throughout the municipality, whether it's the road end, beaches, or West Street, we have seen an uptake in that. 2020, I'm getting mixed up here. 2020 was a big year that we saw a huge rise in it, and 21 carried on with that trend. And it's just not a May to September issue. It's going right into, you know, whether it's the kiters out on the lake, not throwing anybody under the bus, but there's a lot more action within the city year-round. And then the last one of the big three is probably property standards. That's the building itself, whether it's inside or out. It could be a railing on a stairwell or roof, windows, railings. It's visual and appealing, and it's a health issue. So the big one with this is we're trying to protect the tenants from any unsafe conditions. And that's the one that usually takes the longest. I mean, I think we've all talked about different properties, and it's a beast to deal with. So the activity report, you can see that 2022 was, this is everything that's coming through the office, emails, complaints. We did see another uptake, and I think, again, that's the majority, that's probably within traffic issues and or parking that we've saw a major uptick. Next one, please. Complaints by issue. For those that can see it, grass is usually the leading one. We're dead on with that again. It's still leading. Lot maintenance is always number 2. I want to say that hopefully our clean community is going to knock a few of those numbers down, and hopefully as we continue on with that project, we see that gray line come down. Parking is still an issue, and parking, that IWSIR, for those that want to know, that's interfering with snow removal. So that's kind of those little incidents. Hopefully we don't get too many of them, but you can still see 29 or 27 tickets were written for that. And then property standards is last there. Next one, please. Parking issues. I think we've covered that. 2022 and 2021 definitely saw that uptake, and it continuing right as we go through. So we'll see what 2022 brings, whether gas prices and maybe the end of COVID, we keep seeing that influx, or it tapers off a little bit. Complaint by ward, I think will speak for itself. Next one, please. So successes and challenges. Again, there's a 5-letter word up there we don't want to talk about constantly, but I believe our COVID response was good. I mean, we've run a lean ship, and we've kept our ability to respond throughout the pandemic. So I think that's a success for us. Certifications completed. Again, we've kept on that roll to make sure the municipality is covered from other liabilities like that. Successes in the windstorms. We had multiple windstorms in 2021, and I believe our ability to use different technologies like the BlackBerry Haddock was used. That's a notification system to bring our people in pre-storm without paging, and it worked very, very well. Our continuing to engage the community. We brought in AMPS within the bylaw. We brought in a new enforcement policy, and just frankly, the merge between bylaw and fire has gone smoother than I expected. Next slide, please. Some of the other successes, I mean, human resources is so important, and we've added some awesome staff to the building, whether it was Deputy DeGasperis within fire, and through a retirement, Bryce Malensky came on. We brought on 3 new volunteers, and Officer Carter McCullen rounded out our bylaw officers. Everybody's doing great, and very proud of our hires in 2021. Next. Challenges that we saw, we'll leave the top one for you to read. Recruitment, while 2021 recruitment was a success, we kept 3 out of the 6. We only had 11 applicants, which is a worry. I know all volunteer organizations are struggling to get people out, and those that come out be engaged. So I think that's a trend that we're going to see. 2021's recruit, we did have a bigger uptake, so I'm hoping that's Maybe 2021 was just a blip, but we'll wait and see. But I think that's something that we're going to have to keep our eye on. And the public demands. The public expects us to be there when they're needed, and that's just to keep that service level going is constantly in the back of our minds. And I think that's it.
Chief, thank you. Just one correction though. We all know it's called Robin Hood, but we do want to thank Cirrus Global, the owner of the building, for their cooperation with our Port Colborne Fire Department.
I stand
We just
corrected.
I just don't want to upset Cirrus Global. They're a good community partner for us. Questions to the chief on his report? Councillor Bruno.
Thanks, Chief. Great report. You know, I've listened to probably 15 or 16 of these, but what I'm really interested this time for a numbers guy is your people and you. You took on a big challenge with a bylaw changeover. That, you know, then there was Tom, then you moved up. Like, give me some anecdotal stuff, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because I have to tell you, as a counselor, like, every counselor's nightmare is bylaw. And for the first time in a long time, I have less nightmares because of what's going on over there. And I think that's a credit to you, it's a credit to Tom, it's a credit to how this remarkable, I think, merger happened. And you've got different unions, you've got people sharing a hall, you've got people who don't have the space they did have, you've got more bodies there. Can you just give us a little insight on that?
Chief?
Through the mayor to council, some days you get lucky. That's all I can say. You know what? I think that's more of a cup of coffee conversation, Councillor. You know, it's bylaw is a very underappreciated part and service of this city, and I will protect them to the end. They do a lot of great work, and every situation that we put them into, there's always going to be one person that's unhappy, whether it's the complainant or the person that you know, is the issue. And I wouldn't want to do what they do. Oh, sorry. And they do wonderful work, and they put a smile on their face, and they treat every new complaint as a new adventure, and they do their best. Sometimes we don't get the results that we want right away, but I'm very proud of what they do, and I think maybe we've just advertised a little bit better what they've done in the past, and hopefully made them a little bit more appreciated.
Well, I think you're all being very kind in that, but you know, a lot of things change with leadership in anything, and so I think that's a kudo to you guys and the way you merge. But the other concern I have just as a counselor is you may be the victim of your own success. I mean, I start emailing you or CCing you in, and you know, we've kind of been told, you know, it's a lot easier if you just do the customer service thing. So I hope you don't mind that, but it's just such a remarkable and refreshing, I'll say, concluding the file a lot, or like an earlier reaction, an earlier solution, and I just want to thank you, but I hope it's not become an overburden taking on this extra. I mean, maybe it's actually helped your deputy because you're doing more of this, but great job.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Demeray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Chief, it's an excellent report, and well, you know, I've expressed many times how thankful I am to you and your department and the work that you do. But I have to say that one of the things I noticed most, as far as the changes you made, especially with bringing bylaw under your wing, is that I'm not seeing the frequent flyers anymore. I don't see those repeat offenders, and they're the ones that I was usually always on and complaining about. I'm not seeing them anymore, which is really nice to say. Really very nice to say. Also, when I do go into the fire department and I have a chance to look at staff, everybody has a smile. And that wasn't always the case. So it's very nice to see that. So obviously, city employees are really enjoying their work, enjoying their time together, and that is a good thing. So that's probably why they're being as productive as they are. I'm sure that has a lot to play there. My phone doesn't ring half as much. That's a good thing. I have more time. That's nice. And the community cleanup idea, that was a stroke of brilliance that is just, I've never heard so many good things said about it. It's just a really good thing, and I hope there is a way to keep that going. And we'll remind Mr. Bowles yet again about that for next year. But it's wonderful. But I thank you for all that you're doing, and please pass it along to all your staff. I really do appreciate every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions? Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Item 8.2, Tennessee Avenue Gates Design Services and Fire Lane Pillars Scope Change and Additional Funding. The recommendation that Public Works Department Report 2022-121 be received and that Council approve the increase in scope for the Tennessee Gate Design Project to also include design services to address the entrance pillar widths at Fire Lane 1 and Lorraine Road and Fire Lane 2 and Pinecrest Road. And that Council approve additional funding of $20,000 to include the redesign of the pillars at each location to accommodate emergency vehicles and other larger vehicles. If I can have Councillor Wells and Desmarais move that, I'm going to go to Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm in favor of the project, but I am a little concerned in regards to the successful candidate that has the consultant, the WSP. We have had some track record with WSP in previous work, and I'm a little concerned that we may, as long as we don't have that repeated, that but if we do have it repeated, then we will have some problems. So I'm a little concerned, and would ask through you to Director Kawamoto how we can protect ourselves from what had happened in the past with WSP.
Mr. Kawamoto?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor and all of councillors. WSP is a large company. They have multiple experiences, and the technical lead on this particular project has strong experience in heritage designation. But they will also be working with the Heritage Committee, so there are checks and balances, not just with staff. And again, there are new people overseeing these projects from what I've heard from the past in 2017. There's also, we have now, through our procurement policy, is evaluation of consultants. So consultants now can be reviewed and evaluated at any time within the project and could potentially be blackballed or be stopped from actually bidding for a number of years into the future. So their future potential projects are also on the line because of this evaluation that we do. So there are a few new things and a few additional checks and balances that goes along with any of our projects as of 2021. Sorry, 2022.
Correct. Thank you. Councillor.
I understand that there's a much better evaluation that's being done, and I've seen some of those, and they are great, and they are good. I would be curious as to know how WSP fared the best out of all of those with that past history. That's my concern.
Mr. Kawamoto?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, we look at the particular team that is going to, and the expertise within that team that is going to be handling the particular projects, and then again, based on what the projects are and the expertise of that team. So, for example, it is my understanding that the previous project for WSP was a stormwater, as an example, a stormwater project. This one particular here that we're discussing tonight is Heritage Gates. So the expertise of those teams, again, are looked at as the expertise to that particular project. Again, just to note, it's not just the evaluation within awarding of the project, but it's evaluation of the project as it's ongoing. And that is, so there's kind of two different evaluations, one to award, but one then to evaluate the work that is being done. So just for clarity for that.
Councillor?
Thank you. That's it.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Beauregard?
Through your worship to Director Kawamoto, So I understand we're looking at the heritage pillars at this point in time, but the reasoning for this is so for fire, correct? Like for fire trucks to be able to go through?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, not just fire trucks, but yes, fire trucks is obviously one of the most important things for this gentleman sitting to my right. But it's also larger vehicles, whether they be things that are being towed, things like large dump trucks for any work that may be being done within those fire lanes that they can get in. But again, the most important for the municipality are the fire trucks. So as we went ahead and took a look at the Tennessee gates, the chief gave me a call. We had a discussion and actually went out to take a look at these other two sets with the narrowness and his difficulty getting through those gates with any large vehicles. We decided to add this to the scope of work, and that's why we're in front of council today.
Okay.
Councillor?
In your review, did you come across or at all assess the bridge that is on Fire Lane, that ends at the end of Fire Lane 1 where it connects with Weaver Road?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we actually did take a look out there. It's actually going to be handled in a different particular way through municipal drains, and so that will be coming forward to council under that platform. But yes, absolutely, we have.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? That's carried. 8.4. Borden Avenue Road Allowance Surplus Declaration Recommendation. Chief Administrative Officer Report 2022-120 be received, and that council declare the closed Borden Avenue Road Allowance legally described as part of the road allowance between lots 15 and 16 on Plan 10 and lots 23 and 24 on Plan 33 between Steele Street and Knoll Street, shown as Appendix A, as surplus, and that staff be directed to work with the adjoining landowners regarding the creation of the parcels to address current encroachments and provide an opportunity to purchase the parcels at fair market value, and that economic development and tourism staff be directed to create one building lot on the west half of the Borden Avenue road allowance and sell the property in accordance with the sale of land policy. I have Councillor Bruno and Bagu moving that. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I had a discussion today with Mr. Cotton and answered a number of my questions. Thank you for staying. I'm just wondering about the whole issue of the ultimate value of that property. So, I mean, we've gotten appraisals that we haven't been happy with, and then there's, we've got sort of estimated worth, which you kind of use a local real estate. It's kind of a high-level thing, and then ultimately the full appraisal. So I guess my question is, can you walk us through that, as how that will be arrived at, that will get fair market value for a vacant lot? And finally, if he's got some kind of time frame, if you have some kind of time frame for when this will come to fruition, where it'll be up for sale.
Mr. Cotton?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno and Council. Thank you for the question. So the opinion of value is the term I think you were looking for. That is much higher level, lower threshold. We have engaged an appraiser. We're just expecting the appraisal any day for what the fair market value will be. And then we do plan on putting the lot up for sale within the next 2 weeks.
Great, thank you.
Pending approval of tonight's reports.
Thank you very much. Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a deadline to work with some of the adjoining property owners?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council, once the report tonight is approved, we will be engaging with the adjoining landowners over the next couple of weeks. And once we have determined sort of where they want to go based on the fair market value, then we'll be coming back to council with hopefully purchase and sales agreements over, or I'd say the next 6 weeks, ideally.
Councillor Baggett? Okay, further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Item 8.6, appointments to boards and committees. Recommendation that Development and Legislative Services Department Report 2022-89 be received, that the applicants listed in the confidential memo pertaining to Development and Legislative Report 2022-89 as circulated to council be appointed to the respective boards and committees for a term ending December 31st, 2026, or until such time as successors are appointed. I have Councillors Desmarais and Beauregard moving that. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had originally lifted this to address some concerns I had, but my concerns were more in the nature of procedural matters rather than the actual appointments. So I would support the appointments going forward. The clerk has assured me that she's going to see to the procedural matters at a future time, and so we're good with this.
Perfect. Further questions? All in favor, raise your hand. That's carried. 8.7 is Energy Consumption and Greenhouse Gas Emissions Report 2020. Recommendation that Public Works Department Report 2022-109 be received for information purposes. I have Councillor Wells and Bodder moving this. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that sometimes we overlook things and don't see all the hard work that goes behind things. And so the reason I wanted this one to be pulled was to maybe get a little bit of a summary, a little flavor of what we are doing and what we are looking for in the future in regards to reducing our energy for our taxpayers, what we're looking to do in regarding reducing our gas house emissions and addressing climate change and all of that, all of the environmental stuff that's going on in the background. So I pulled this so that we could get a little brief summary, a little flavor of that, and commend the progress that we've made on that.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Ms. Lannon, do you want to give us those overviews?
Sure. Through the Mayor, Councillor Wells. I first want to just remind Council that this report to Council is to update you on our annual report that we report on 2 years previous. And we are going to be putting out another report probably by the end of the third quarter that goes through a more comprehensive list of our greenhouse gas emissions. So we'll be looking at fleet and all of our facilities that we own and operate, not just the ones that are included in the criteria of this report to the province. We'll be working with finance and facilities so that we can have a better way of updating council about those changes. I can give a little bit of a summary. If we want to start with 2020 being the year that this report is about, we were able to finish some of our lighting retrofits that we had started in previous years but hadn't been able to get to while we were shut down for COVID. Our pool lighting was something that we hadn't been able to get to because of the use, constant use of that facility. We were able to do general upgrades at Valet and City Hall, and if you remember, in February of 2020, our greenhouse gas reduction plan was passed. A couple of other changes since then that we've been talking about. This year, our budget request form for the 2023 budget, we've kind of included what was outlined in our ECDM and greenhouse gas reduction plan as our green procurement policy and our climate lens, and used some of that language in our budget request form so that staff consider greener options and demonstrate the cost difference of choosing a greener option, so we can show that staff are making those considerations and track that. Last year's budget was the approval of 2 charging stations, one at the Valley Health and Wellness Center and one at Market Square, and those are pending some federal funding, and we're applying for that currently. Since 2019, we have, I'll just check my list here, we've performed energy audits at the Marina, City Hall, Valet, and this summer we are auditing the library, Roselawn, and for reference in the report, we break Roselawn into Roselawn Center and First Roselawn, which will, moving forward, we'll probably be calling the theater and the Roselawn Heritage Site. In the audit, we look at both of those. In this year's audit, we'll look at the staffing changes and the change of use due to the new lease agreement in that audit. And we'll be performing our first energy audit of the Operations Center as well, which is a newer facility, and so we're hoping to see some good results there. It was already mentioned earlier at the meeting tonight, but we recently purchased an electric UTV for use at the marina, so we'll be tracking how that's working and see if it's possible to kind of expand our smaller fleet items and electrify them. Also, the Urban Forestry and Assessment and Management Plan is open for tender right now. So those are just a couple of the things that we've been doing in the last little while and things that we're looking at in the future. I think I forgot to add that we are updating our energy conservation demand management plan a little bit early so that by 2024 we already have a plan that incorporates our greenhouse gas emissions and fleet so that all of the considerations are made moving forward.
Counselor?
That's great. There is a lot of work that is going on there, and the Environmental Advisory Committee has recognized that, and would like to compliment you on everybody's efforts on there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Further questions? Counselor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. Landon. Thank you very much, Ms. Landon. Your reports are always, it takes me the longest time to read them, to tell you the truth, because I got to read really slow to catch it all. But it's probably just me. Anyways, it is me, my wife says. Total energy for 2020. I do comparisons. I compare like the Sugarloaf Marina to, say, the library, where the marina is higher in total energy use for the whole year, whereas the marina is shut down for an extended part of the year. So how can we justify? Is the marina using too much energy, or is it the library that's screwing up?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I will say that we are really proud of our library and the changes that we've made there in the last couple of years to make them more energy efficient, and the library staff are always on top of conserving energy through keeping their lights off when you're not during business use. Even the small things like their display cases don't get plugged in until they open to the public first thing in the morning and they're unplugged. So part of it is that the library is very energy efficient. And then part of it is that the marina, even though it's not used the entire year, the time of use is very intense. When you're there, when you think about the amenities that they offer, they have laundry, they have showers, they have charging, and so it is a very energy intense building for those months that it's in use. There have been some upgrades, but yeah, it's definitely a difficult one to compare to. Also, there aren't a lot of examples. Not a lot of municipalities have marinas, and so they don't report necessarily on the energy intensity and the energy usage, so it's tough to get a read on how it's doing comparatively to other marinas.
Counselor?
I'm sure your department is on to it perfectly. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm good.
Good. Thank you, Counselor Bruno.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councillor Bagu, is the marina though high because the marina isn't just the two buildings there? Is it not also all the slips with plugs? And so those believe that's just a flat rate because there's no meters on that. So is that an area that you'll look at on a cost-benefit analysis? Like, meters aren't cheap, but meters over time may curtail use or give more accurate reading for cost recovery. Is it on the horizon, or that's strictly a marina decision, or are you inputting on that?
Ms. Lana?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bruno. I think the idea of metering each separately would be not plausible, just because there's so many different slots and where they're charged that some of the different marina buildings, like the marina store, is metered separately. But yeah, I think it would be difficult to propose that as an example, and I think that's why we look at what we charge based on the amount of energy costs.
I don't know the answer, maybe you don't have it, but when you go, the docks at the marina, is there a meter at the start of the docks that allows you to have a total that's going to the boats?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the marina dock lighting is metered separately and isn't included in this report because it's not connected to the facility itself.
Well, I guess I'm saying not just the dock lights, but when you leave land and you go down all those runs, is that power coming through one meter? I know it's not on each slip. But the reason I ask that is because year over year, it would be nice to see what's happening there. Like, can you hive off all of the docks to one reading, or 3 or 4 readings if there's a meter on, say there's 3 meters run all the docks? I would just be interested in knowing that you ultimately are charging the right price.
Ms. Lannon?
Yes, and that's something that we can include in our report that's coming later this summer, because we don't include the dock lighting in this report.
And the other question, if I could.
Oh, just before you move on, Mr. Colborne?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the council and everybody looking. It's important to take a look at, when we take a look at these charts, what we're really looking at is year over year for the same particular asset, because that's really important to show that we are going to be working on that, because it's very difficult to compare apples to apples, not just from a city hall to an operations center to the Valley Health and Wellness Center, but to other municipalities. And even though they may have a wellness center as an example, it's very, very difficult to compare because it is used in a different way. Now, as we move forward, as Coordinator Nolan said, with our newer and updated ECDM plan, all of those particular things will be looked at. And as we move forward with technology, there's additional enhancements that can be found when we take a look at it. As Coordinator Landon said, this is going to be one of the first times that we're looking at the Engineering and Operations Center. And even though it's not that old, technology has come such a long way that we think that we should be able to get some energy costs and greenhouse gas reduction savings through this plan. And what we eventually will do, just like an asset management plan or an infrastructure needs study, is eventually come up with a 5-year plan to implement the recommendations that will be coming through. My apologies, as Coordinator Landon said, a 7-year plan to come out with the implementation of the recommendations coming out of that plan. Again, because we are going to be 2 years ahead, so we'll be able to have that 7-year plan, and that will all be being conducted through Coordinator Landon. So it is important to take a look at our own and look in the mirror, but just take a look at each of these individual assets or buildings year over year, and to ensure that we have done enough to take a look to see if we can reduce that energy and that greenhouse reduction. So as noted by the councillor, the marina might be one that we take a look and prioritize within that 7-year capital plan, because we know it is per square foot using a lot of the energy. But again, it is important to compare it to itself of the previous years, which is what you see in these graphs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor?
And just one last one, me. Was it a conscious decision that the 2 rural community centers aren't on that list?
To the mayor, to the councillor, they're outside the scope of this report to the province based on how they fit into the city's facilities. So it's facilities that are owned and operated by the municipality that we pay utilities for. So that's come outside.
Okay, great. Further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Item 9.1 is, this is under correspondence. It's item 9.1. It's a letter from Stephen Zeus. True Politics requests support by the city of Port Colborne to declare a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction in the city of Port Colborne. I'll have Councillor Desmarais move to receive this, along with Councillor Bruno. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've lifted this for a few reasons. One, I absolutely support the fact that mental health, homelessness, and addiction has become an overriding sense of emergency all across Ontario, without a doubt, most likely across Canada. But I also wanted to speak to the fact that Port Colborne, in many ways, is unique in Ontario because we are actually out ahead of the pack, doing more than most municipalities do in these areas. With the Social Determinants of Health Committee and the work being done there, with the Portal Table and the work being done there, with agencies like Port Cares, Bridges Community Health Center, and city staff and all that they bring to it, the Port Colborne community is probably better served than many in these areas. Is it served well enough? Probably not. There's probably much more that we all need, but what is needed needs to come from other levels of government. So I do believe that it is important that we support this motion and look to higher levels of government to take this on and make these situations less of an emergency going forward. But I also had a question, and it would probably go to the CAO. With respect to when a state of emergency is declared on any subject or on any situation, what is required of a city and a municipality rather, and what possible financial implications could we be seeing?
CL Lou?
Sure, those are great questions. Through the worship to Councillor Desmarais, I have been talking to Chief Lawson about this a little bit too, because as you know, he is the city's Chief Emergency Management Coordinator, Community Emergency Management Coordinator, CEMC. I knew this item was on council. We both did. And I might say more than you've asked. I might answer more than you've asked. But when we talk about an emergency, we sometimes think about a train derailment or a plane crash or a propane leak or explosion or something of that nature. I guess, from our most recent experience, we even think about a medical emergency like the pandemic was. And the city has an emergency control group that gets together and we apply a formula, I guess, that's called the IMS, Incident Management System. Some council members have had training in IMS. But IMS really, we learned, isn't appropriate for a long, prolonged situation like the COVID pandemic, and we quickly modified our procedures in the same way that the issues that are before council in the form of this correspondence item, mental health, addiction, and homelessness, would be prolonged and difficult to solve with an emergency control group that includes your finance folks and your road response crews and your emergency services. We're looking at a different kind of emergency. And so I think if I can sort of extrapolate your question out, it's how do we respond to something that doesn't fit the framework that we've trained to respond to. The second component of that is the financial question you asked. When we declare an emergency, when the mayor declares an emergency, and that is in fact the only person who can declare an emergency in Port Colborne, usually on the advice of staff and or council, we are eligible for, the name has probably changed, but ODRAP, Ontario Disaster Recovery something program funds, where we can get money into our community. That application process is very specific. It would be lovely if we could say to the province, we've declared an emergency on these social and safety issues in our community, and we would like to tap into the relief funds. I don't think that we would qualify based on the last training that I've had a few years ago when the ministry staff were down here training the different municipalities on how to apply to the municipal relief, and I attended. The flip side is, what does it mean for the municipality in terms of expending our own levy dollars, our own budget dollars to address what council has declared an emergency? And without talking to the chief, I'd have to defer that answer to another council meeting. So I think I will read one thing here, and I'll tell you my opinion, my staff opinion. Until I talked to the fire chief, I thought that this was not an issue for the municipal council and it was not the appropriate declaration of an emergency. The simple fact is the chief gave me some wording about what an emergency is. And the chief said that an emergency is declared when the level of government can no longer deal effectively with a serious issue. And I think that's a perfect definition for something like homelessness, addiction, and mental health issues, because the city is not equipped to deal effectively with those issues. Some of them are regional issues, provincial issues, public health issues. I say that small p, small h, not regional public health, but public health generally. And I know other municipalities in Niagara have passed this resolution. For that reason, I would never advise council not to pass it. I would suggest that you could pass this resolution today, this request, or we could defer it to some future meeting and let the fire chief provide his comments. And I do apologize for the fire chief's absence, but as council is aware, Tuesday is the night that the firefighters get their training, so we often let him go. So it is not through any fault of the fire chief that he's not here, it's simply scheduling. But if council does wish to hold off for a little while, which I know is hard to do, we could bring back a response from the fire chief that helps guide council in their decision making.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Louie. That really brought clarity to it, and I'm really happy that you did speak to it. I would like to go forward with passing this tonight, but I would also like to ask the mayor to take this issue to the region and try to make it, try to bring it there and see what can be done, because it's obviously there. That's a level of government that has a little more control on these issues. This still really does float along the provincial level, but the more attention we can bring to it, the better it's going to be. There's no question there. We're all in this crisis. It's and it's going to take all of us to get out of it. So that's what I would ask, is that we support this tonight, and Mr. Mayor, that you take it as a regional councillor to the regional level and see what can be done there. Thank you.
Questions? Councillor Baggett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, did not regional council already have this declaration, if I'm not mistaken?
I'm not sure if it was exactly this one, but I gotta remember here if it came to actual council or minutes from our health committee, which I'm trying to remember. I don't sit on that committee, so I'm trying to remember the minutes in my mind here. I could find that out for you. I'm not sure if it was passed there, quite frankly, but I will check.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just because some of the literature, when I looked this up on the internet, I'm sure it said the author did take this to regional council and every municipality, and some passed it before. And I don't know if it's the same one that's came up a year or two ago or not, but I would like to hear Chief Lawson comment. I'm not a big proponent of doing a symbolic declaration of emergency when you have no plan. To pot it off to the region, it's easy enough. We give them $16 million a year. What are you going to do about it? But I think everybody's going to be in on it. And unless we have a plan, I'm not willing to support this motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further comments? Councillor Bruno.
Councillor Demaray's point in the discussion with that the CAOs mentioned is the unanimity of all the lower tier levels of government meant to support, when I read the second whereas there, that the region declare a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction, which, as Councillor Desmarais said, is more in their wheelhouse. So I'm really wondering whether supporting this is just asking ultimately the region to declare it. Yeah. I'm a little more akin to Councillor Baguiou's point. I would like to hear from the chief and maybe mull this over a little bit. It will be dicey to, if 11 out of 12 have already done it, as to the kind of wording we would say that is still supportive but doesn't use state of emergency.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Yep. Sorry, Councillor Bodner?
To you, Mr. Mayor, do you have any sense of when this is coming back to the region? You thought maybe it went through the one department, but it would have to come to regional council as a whole, I would suspect, to get.
The minutes of that committee came forward, but quite frankly, I don't remember how it was handled.
There's a lot of committees, so.
That's right. And I sit on Public Works, so I let me find this out. I think Councillor Butters sits on the Health Committee, so I can ask Barb. Oh, you've got it there? Oh, look at that. What a clerk this is.
I have an article.
Okay, so it came to us in 2021, so a year ago, and it wasn't voted on at the regional level?
No, not at that time.
Yeah, so obviously, the committee must not have voted on this, but as a correspondence, it went through with the minutes and it wasn't voted on again either. So it'll have to be a reconsideration. Well, I wouldn't say that, because if nobody brought it forward, it could be brought forward again.
Yes, it was brought up in October 2021, but not voted on because a councillor raised a procedural question, and it appears it hasn't been brought back, and this article is dated June 3rd, 2022.
Okay, so I can find out what the health committee is doing on that if you want, in the interim. It's up to you.
No, it was just a question.
Yeah.
I was curious.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, if I could maybe lend some clarity to that. My understanding is at committee level at the region, there was a decision made by two councillors not to discuss it, to put it aside, and it died there. That was my understanding of it. Okay. So that was that. But just so further clarity, when it says 11 of the 12 Niagara area municipalities have unanimously requested that the region declare a state of emergency, we were one of those 12. We did. So that's what I'm saying. We did that. So we are not the 12th. We were one of the 11. So, right. Yeah, this is asking that we take it in a different manner. This is a different motion. So, okay. Thank you.
Well, we sent it to the region. You can send it back to the region if you want, but it's up to you guys. Is that it? Further questions, comments? Oh, Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So do we have a plan in the event that this is declared a state of emergency?
Mr. CAO?
I think the short answer, through your worship to Councillor Beauregard, I think the short answer is no, we don't have a plan. I think the longer answer is that we need to, every day the need is demonstrated for more and more social services and intervention, I guess, type services. I think that we also have I can't think of the word, a responsibility problem in what's provincial, what's upper tier municipal, and what's lower tier municipal. For example, I often have folks come forward and talk about homeless shelters and homeless workers and outreach workers. Homelessness is very much a regional responsibility, not a city responsibility. So, but what I can say is, and Councillor Desmarais has already alluded to this, we are very good at, we are farther down the road than most municipalities our size and some far bigger municipalities, because we have Portal, which is an early intervention for at-risk individuals. That includes many social service agencies as well as Niagara Regional Police. We have the social determinants of health. So I think the short answer of what I'm trying to say is that the plan, there is not a plan, but the early pieces or the pieces of the puzzle are coming together for a city plan.
Councillor?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead,
Are you not
Councillor.
done?
You're
Okay.
next.
Sorry.
Then I've got Councillor Clayla.
So I think we wouldn't be the ones declaring the state of emergency. We're asking somebody that can do something about this, which is the region. Whether they can do everything, they can at least do more than we can. And so I'm kind of comfortable now, after the discussions, of moving it on to somebody who can do something about it. And we wouldn't be declaring the state of emergency. If I'm wrong, tell me. Somebody else would, so we wouldn't have to enact something right away, unless I'm reading this wrong.
Well, you'd have to remove the "be it resolved," which is the second last paragraph.
Yep.
And you would change it to that you send it off to the health committee and the region. I would say you send it to that committee and to regional council, to both. Okay, I've got Councillor Clayla first. I'm going to go to Councillor Clayla. Is that fine, Councillor Butter?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Clayla.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment. It's interesting because everything we talk about, all the issues in Port Colborne that are issues that we can't deal with, are all exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about homelessness. We're talking about all of these different needs. We have these services available, but we have we get responses back that people can do what they want. They're not accountable for different things. We are in a state of emergency, whether we like it or not. We're just not calling it that. Even what we're talking about, the pilot house, it's all wrapped up in this. It's all there. It's just that, and we can't solve it. We've seen it time and time again that we can't solve it. And you know, we have more and more people coming all the time. The numbers, we provide services, and yet we don't even have the ability to provide some services, and people don't have to accept them if they don't want them. So we are, as far as I'm concerned, we are in a state of emergency. We have been for a long time. I agree. I think the region pushes off to us just because we do accept, because we are that one step ahead that Councillor Desmarais is talking about. We are willing to take people, to help people, and we don't have the ability to do it. And we've reached that point that at some point you have to just say no. I saw responses from the police where they can't intervene, and you know, you have people, and it's not that they're complaining, it's that they're concerned. They have concerns for these people, for health. We talk about safety for our staff, we talk about safety for our citizens, we talk about all of these things, but there's nothing that we can do to stop it. And so I am in favor of declaring an emergency and turning to the region and saying, you know, you want us to be, we're one step ahead, we're able to help people and do things, but you're also tying our hands. We need you to help us here. And maybe this is what we need to do, to start out doing it to so that we're heard. I'm not sure. I don't have an answer. Otherwise, like I said, everything that we've talked about tonight, we have all these wonderful plans for things going on in the city, but we don't have any answers for.
I do believe that as a city, we've reached our saturation point. I don't believe there's more that we can do. And I think it's time to turn it over to another level of government and let them weigh in with what they can do. And they in turn maybe at some point might want to kick it up the ladder a little bit more. But at this point, we have to do whatever is available to us to be able to affect change. If we don't, we're just going to continually have the problem. I mean, we look at last night, supper time in the Washerman H.H. Hill Park. Right there, someone was ODing. So, you know, come on. It's enough. It's all over social media today. And it did happen. I was there to see that one. So, you know, just before our meeting last night. So, I mean, we look at these things. We want to bring tourism in. We want our city to be healthy, more vibrant. We want our you know, more people to live here and move here and be happy about it. Then we've got to do all that we can. And this is part of it. So I rest with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The only concern I have is that once we declare this and we don't have a path forward where we're declaring it, does it just become symbolic? I mean, I look at what the CAO talked about, with whether it's a disaster within the community, a large storm. The pandemic, we did declare emergency, but we knew there would be an end to that. So, which we've now taken that away. I just don't want to declare it and that's the end of it. So I think, I do tend to agree with some of the councillors that maybe we need to hear from our our fire chief with regards to how to move forward with that. I just don't want to leave it laying out there and it's waving in the wind. That's the concern I have with this.
Mr. Mayor, I would be very happy to actually even kick it over to the Social Determinants of Health Committee if we wanted to, and have the fire chief attend that. Well, he does already attend that, sorry. That we could all sit and entertain it at that point and bring a recommendation back to council. I'm happy to do that, to create, because you say we don't have a plan, but I think this is the plan, is to declare the state of emergency and move it on up to another level of government that is better suited to be able to take care of it. I don't think we have anything else we could plan for, but I think that putting it at that committee level may be the answer. I'm certainly willing to do that. I just don't think we should leave this unaddressed.
No, I'm not saying to do that. I'm just, and I know what you're saying, but I really don't think this is a plan. It's just a declaration. You know, when we went into the pandemic and we declared it an emergency, which it was, staff got together and created a path forward.
Before or after?
I think it was kind of during. I mean, we had started and then declared the emergency, and so it was a before, during, and after. So there were components, but there was direction. I mean, now you're going to declare this. Oh, do you just want to kick it to staff then? I like your path. If we can refer it to social determinants, then maybe there can be a path created. Because it's not like we're not doing anything.
No.
We're doing a lot.
Right.
Has it ended everything? No. Will it end everything? No. We do need that upper tier levels, and I'm looking more at federal and provincial than even more than the region. The region does things, but the money does come for all those programs at the region, mostly from federal and provincial healthcare dollars. So it needs to be a very coordinated effort on this issue. And you're right. I think it was you earlier said it's a provincial issue, but it's a Canadian issue. This is across Canada. So again, I just don't want to be symbolic here. We all agree with what's going on, and we've worked very hard with our committees and our partners here in Port Colborne and beyond, because we do deal with partners outside the municipality that have an effect within the municipality. So I think that's probably the best tact to take, is that we refer this to give us better answers. Councillor?
Through your worship, just one point of clarity. If we were to declare this an emergency, does that automatically mean that the upper tier levels of government have to get involved? Because that seems to be an assumption that's being made.
That I don't know.
Okay.
I with the pandemic, the province, the region, we went with the region on the same day, but that was agreed to with all the mayors and the regional chair, but the province went first. And I don't know if the feds ever declared it at all. I know the province did. But they did it first, then we did ours. The 13 municipalities here did it together at the same time.
Mr. Mayor, I'm really happy to send this to the Social Determinants of Health Committee, and even strike maybe a bit of a task force to get the other communities in Niagara involved in it, to ask the region to attend the meeting, whatever we need to do. I'm good with that, but I just think that as far as all the resources we have available to us here right now, we have reached that saturation point where we can no longer do more. to take it up another level. What we're doing is not effective enough. It saves a little bit, but it's not saving much. So we need more help on this. And if whatever path it needs to take it to that committee, and we'll go from there and come back to council with recommendation.
So Madam Clerk, I can take, although everybody's pretty much spoken on this, we can, if I ask Councillor Desmarais and Bruno that we refer it to a specific committee for comment and include the chief, is that fine with you?
Yes.
Okay, so is that all right, councillors, the movers? Okay, I won't debate that portion of this, but, so it will be referred to that committee along with the chief and the CAO included with that, and then it come back. So that, their next meeting, councillor, is?
Actually, it's September. It's going to be September.
Okay.
So it'll be holding off for a bit, but this is not an issue that's going to go anywhere, so.
And we're still moving on with other things we're doing.
So, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. Council gets that? Councillor Clayla, if you're fine with that? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Yeah, it's to the committee and including the chief and the CAO. Okay? So item 9.3 is a letter from the Niagara region regards to a motion that was passed there for voluntary Russian sanction request. I have councillors Desmarais and Beauregard to move that. Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really hope this isn't going to be that long, but in any case, yes. All right. This motion speaks to the actions of Russia on the Ukraine and the people of the Ukraine, and asking for this municipality to take part in a sanction against Russia's goods and any trade there. Also, yes, I believe I have it all. So, and it also asks that we send this along to the usual reply chain. So, it makes it very clear that any councillor that would be a part of this would automatically, be looked at by the Russian government as being on a sanctioned list, and I would be very proud to offer my name as the first of those. So I do support this. I think it's a very important motion. I hope that all of council has read every part of it, and if not, I'd be happy to read it for you. But I support it and like to see it go forward.
Okay, so I'll take that as a motion to not just receive, that we support the request from the region with regards to their motion regarding Russia. And is that okay, Councillor Beauregard?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Will you leave? I stepped out. So I'm going to have to take Councillor Beauregard off that. Councillor Bodnar, you'll second that? Okay, so as opposed to just receiving that, we will support this, and if any councillor wants to add their name to the list, we can send that to the region to be added. My name was added to that list. Any further questions? Councillor Baguio?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the actual letter says that any regional councillor wishes to be voluntary sanctioned, not municipal councillor.
No, but I think Councillor Desmarais has brought forward that we can add our names.
Oh, amendment? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be included with our letter back to them of support.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Okay. All right, further questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor. Council. 9-9. This is item 9.9. It's a letter from the town of Fort Erie regarding bidding wars and apartment rentals. I have Councillor Desmarais. I'll put Councillor Beauregard on this one. We took you off the last one, Councillor Beauregard, because you left the room. So I'll put you on this one, Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I lifted this because I was just astounded to find out that there were bidding wars going on for apartment rentals. I had heard a rumor that it was happening in Port Colborne, but I just ignored it because I thought that sounded ridiculous. And then along came this motion. I read it and I thought, wow, it's not so ridiculous. And as you all know, housing is a really important thing to me, and I've been working very hard on it. And I see every day at least one family or one single person who is just not able to find a place to live, and certainly would never be able to afford what is out there. So making things even more unaffordable is just, I find it disgusting. So I've lifted this. I would hope that everybody supports it. We can't let this just slide by. We need to make it our own.
Okay, so Councillor Demering, I take this as a motion to support. Councillor Beauregard, you're fine with that? Further questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Item 9.11. It's a resolution from the City of Aurora, the Town of Aurora, Council Resolution of May 24th. Councillor Humphreys read Private Members Bill C-233, Kiera's Law. I have moved by Councillors Desmarais and Wells. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I swear this is my last one tonight. So this one is, again, something that is incredibly important. Kiera's Law deals with domestic violence, deals with women having violence visited upon them, and with children, the same. If you read this motion through, I can't imagine anybody reading it without their heart just about stopping. It's awful to think of it. But what this motion asks for is that we do everything that we can to be supportive of Bill 233, because that bill will allow for judges, people in that position of making the decisions, to get the proper training so that they are armed with the right kind of information. They know exactly what domestic violence is, what brings it about, what happens during it, what will escalate it, all of the various aspects, and just how much this is tearing apart our society today. So of real importance that we take this and lift it, support it, and move it along.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I'll take that as a motion to support. Councillor Wells, you're fine with that? Great, thank you. Any further questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Councillor Bagu, on bylaw 20.1, oh, sorry, let me get to that in a minute. I apologize. Well, I was just looking at my other list here. Well, before I go to that, I can ask him. The CAO's already provided an update on this. Are you fine without pulling it separately?
I'm fine with it, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask something before we go on?
Yep.
Item 9.2, it's action required. That wasn't pulled, and by just passing, I think they're asking for us to actually put our name to support this from the region. By just passing it, did we support it, or do we have to do a special?
We've.
I don't remember.
Clerk, so we voted on this, and if they're asking us for our support, then I would say that we supported it. If you want the minutes to note that, we can note that when we pass this, by not bringing it forward, that we support the region's water pipe smoking bylaw. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mayor Steele, they are requesting that a resolution be passed consenting to the bylaw and advise of the action taken by your council no later than August 1st. So we would require a motion.
Okay.
Consenting.
So really it's a reconsideration. So can I have a mover and a seconder to reconsider? Councillor Beauregard, Councillor Bodnar. Any questions on that? All in favor? Okay, so the item 9.2 is back on the floor. Madam Clerk, do you want to give us some wording that we can put on the floor for this? Go ahead.
That council consent to the water pipe smoking bylaw outlined and passed by Regional Municipality of Niagara.
Okay. Councillor Beauregard and Bodnar, you're fine with moving that? Yep. Questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, motions, there are none. Any notices of motion? None? Minutes of boards and committees, I'll do these in block. We have the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee minutes, March 22nd and April 19th of 2022. Port Colborne Public Library Board minutes of April 6, 2022. Environmental Advisory Committee minutes of April 13th, 2022. Councillor Wells, Councillor Bagu, can you move those? Questions on any of them? All in favor? Carried. Bylaws, noting Councillor Bagu's questions have been answered. I have bylaws 20.1, 20.2, and 20.3. If I could have Councillors Desmarais and Caleff move that. Questions on any bylaws? All in favor? That's carried. There are no confidential items this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, this ends our meeting. Before I adjourn, I'd like to thank everybody for watching. And again, if you have any questions, you can reach our customer service team on the front, on the first floor. And if you have any issues with regards to anything within the city, please contact our customer service representatives. Staff, thank you for this evening. And again, thank you for watching. And please stay. This meeting is